6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis. But here's the deal. This is what makes this show different than everybody else. Your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Tune into any of those other stations that some dude in an office in New York wrote you the news, or you're going to hear a monologue. But you are part of the conversation on this show. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and here's the phone number, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. If you can't get through on the phone lines, text us on the 710 KNUS app, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Absolutely fire show we're going to get into today. Chris Murray, partner with First and 14th Law, is going to join us in just a second to talk all about the major U.S. Supreme Court decisions that came down yesterday. It's a much better understanding of what happened than just having Bill and I read SCOTUS blog posts. So we'll get you the real news and real analysis with Chris Murray in just a second. Steve Bannon heading to prison, hosts a rally outside. What do you think of Steve Bannon, a political prisoner or a dude that deserves to go to prison, right? You violate, find yourself in contempt of Congress. You got to show up. If you don't, you're going to go to prison. So is it a good thing what happened to Steve, or is this the continued downward spiral of the United States of America as we put our political opponents in prison? Then the New York Times, shockingly, coming out with a big survey yesterday that, you know what, keeping kids out of school during the pandemic, not so good. Preschoolers are heading into elementary school, can't even hold pencils. Don't know how to emotionally reason well. They're really facing a lot of problems. We're getting to that 7 o'clock hour. And then the tractor supply controversy. Beep, beep, beep. That's the sound of a tractor backing up away from DEI. We'll cover that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then 9 o'clock hour, Dr. Tom Copeland wrote an op-ed in Real Clear World, Why Palestinians Are Not Welcome in Other Countries. Diving into that issue and more. So lots to cover. Boy, you're not going to want to miss any of this. So stick around and let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. It's going to be a great Tuesday. What's
up? Did you get some sleep? That dog do a little bit better?
Oh, no dog, no barking, no calls to prayer, and at least 5 hours of sleep. I feel like a whole new human being. Thank you very much for
Do you
asking.
still have the audio of that dog? I think Chris Murray would like to hear.
Yeah, is Chris there?
Right now? He's in the studio.
Okay.
This is what Blake had to deal with all night.
All night the other night.
Yeah, Sunday night.
Not last night, but the night before, a next door neighbor's dog just moved into this house. So I don't know. I really don't know the neighbors. They were gone. Here's their dog.
No. It was yesterday. We called it the call to prayer.
And it went on, Chris, for probably 4 hours until they got home. I don't know if they got home at 3 o'clock. It was just ridiculous. And it was right outside my wife and I's window. I mean, probably 30 feet away. Beautiful. But I got some sleep last night, Chris. And you know what? I just heard an attorney, I think on Hugh's show.
I heard the same thing. I go, that's Chris Murray.
Like Chris's brother or something?
I know.
Wait, I mean, so the secret is like lawyers basically all sound the same.
Did you? I was going to bring Blake. I was going to bring up that same thing as I was driving in, going the lawyer that Hugh had on to discuss the same case we're going to discuss sounds just like you. And I was like, man, maybe he's doing a double hitter today.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, I don't. I like Hugh Hewitt. He's a good man. But no, he did not book me today.
Well, this guy didn't sound as smart as you. Just so you
I
know.
agree.
You know, there's no doubt you're much more savvy and clear in your communication for idiots like me. So we're glad you're here, Chris. All right, we're going to do the news now. Good to talk to both of you guys, and I'll talk to Billy coming up here in a few minutes, I'm sure. 59 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation.
He's back!
Meanwhile, former President Trump looking to have his New York lawfare campaign derailment case thrown out hours after the Supreme Court issued its landmark ruling about presidential immunity. Trump's lawyers filed a letter with Judge Mersham looking to set aside the recent guilty verdict, saying evidence was introduced that is now protected. The letter also asked for the July 11th sentencing to be delayed. Possible Trump VP pick, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, called it a massive win. President Biden did not. He read his script for 4 minutes on Monday.
I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent.
Other Democrats are, I dissent. You can see the T-shirts right now. You're going to hear that like 60 times today.
Blake, did you see, too, that he painted himself orange?
I did.
Joe Biden did.
I heard about it.
Yep. He came out looking like Trump with the little white around the eyes and all that stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
So they were talking about Biden did, huh?
Yeah,
Really?
Biden came out in that speech that he just gave. He's got the orange tint going on.
No kidding.
Dude, this stuff just gets better and better. And we're now just full reality show country at this point.
Next, he'll have a Joy Reid wig on, to go along with the orange tint. Other Democrats are hammering the Supreme Court over its decision to grant immunity to presidents for official acts. The genius AOC says that she'll soon file impeachment articles against at least one justice on the High Court, but did not specify which justice or how many she would target. She said the ruling represents an assault on American democracy. On CNN, actual criticism of Biden continues, which tells me, you know what, maybe the Obama and Clinton camp are steering this. Here's a guy named Scott Jennings.
Joe Biden, after cannonballing into an empty swimming pool on Thursday night, came out tonight and spoke for 4 minutes off of the teleprompter. He's good for 4 minutes today, as long as somebody else wrote it. After having this completely tone-deaf sort of announcement coming out of this meeting that you wrote about with his family this weekend, where his son, the notorious influence peddler and crack addict, Hunter Biden, says, you got to keep going.
All right, back at home, the city of Denver has shut down its final hotel shelter for illegal immigrants. City leaders say the number of newcomers in the shelter dropped to 0 for the first time since all this mess began, meaning it can close its doors. In December, a total of 144 buses dropped off illegal immigrants in Denver, compared to just 4 in June. They got their 15 million in. Sounds like. While the last hotel shelter is now closed, Denver's reception center will continue welcoming illegals 7 days a week. One person is dead and another is in custody following a Monday night shooting in Denver. It happened near 8th and Dahlia in the Northeast Park Hill neighborhood, where investigators say the victim was shot during a fight. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene, and there's no word on what charges the suspect may be facing. Lakewood authorities say a woman entered the First Bank on South Wadsworth. She had a weapon and demanded money before she fled. She's described as white, between 50 and 70 years old. at least 5'3" with a thin build. Anyone with information on her should contact Metro Denver Crime Stoppers.
Blake, I am so glad you picked up on the story. I was going to talk about this today.
I figured you would.
So this little old lady, 70 years old,
Man,
5 feet 3 inches, robs a bank, and the tellers are like, yes, we will absolutely give you the money, you fierce and intimidating person. You know, a slight breeze could blow her over. Why are they giving her money?
Right. Man, I mean, when she walks away, I get it. She has a gun and everything, but don't you just freaking tackle her from behind? Right?
Or just poke her? And she'll fall over. I don't know
exactly
why they're so afraid. I didn't see that she had a gun, but at these pictures on KDVR of her, you're like, really? Like someone should just guide her to maybe the Denny's down the street and buy her a little breakfast and then help her get home and take a nap. I mean,
right.
It's kind of like if Joe Biden showed up to rob a bank. You'd be like, all right, nice try. Why don't you go take a nap?
Absolutely. Oh, man. Hey, you know, I didn't get to this on Monday. Give an inch, take a mile. No pun intended. And I thought about this with Ted Tripp on with you yesterday. He was disappointed in you. I was not, because I was not disappointed in you, because there's a young reporter. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. A young reporter named Savannah Hernandez reporting on the Pride Parade in San Francisco on X on Sunday. I'm sure you saw this. I mean, I get it. It's San Francisco, but this is just an example of when you normalize something, it can explode. And I won't play all of it because it is absolutely disgusting. I mean, you just use your imagination. It happened at this thing on Sunday. Kids were present. You know, you do whatever you want in your own, private quarters, whatever. But kids were present and witnessing all of this. Here's Savannah.
I'm shocked and horrified after experiencing this. Keep in mind that this is an all ages event. There were children present. The fetish zone was an 18+ area, but there were no IDs being checked. And again, there were adults essentially having sex in public. I am shocked. I've never experienced such a vulgar display of promiscuity. I mean, I don't even know what to say in terms of this. I'm shocked and horrified, and I don't think I'm ever going to cover Pride ever again after what I witnessed today.
Yeah, thank God. I get away from
the worst of the worst.
Stay away.
There was another video of men just walking around with no pants on, period. I mean, just their full exposure taking place. And I got a lot of calls from people yesterday about that conversation with Ted. And if you missed it, it was a conversation with Ted Trimpa, and Ted criticized me for being too, accommodating on Dave Williams. And Dave sending out the emails saying God hates pride and kind of lumping all the gay people together with groomers and stuff. And I get the critique, and obviously they're not every gay person's a groomer, right? And Ted kind of, in my mind, represents the kind of older school LGBTQ that just wanted to be able to live their life, right? And they're not into promoting it and putting it on every school flag or wall of every school and all that stuff. They're just very happy to get the rights that they wanted. But Ted's also got to come, and the LGBTQ community's got to come to terms with the fact that you are now mainstream. And if you're doing this stuff, you got men walking around without pants on. You got that audio that you just played of sexual activity taking place out in public. Right. Then you need to condemn it too. You can just leave it to the social conservatives to go, hey, don't walk around without pants on with kids around. Really? We're the only ones that can say that? Come on. You got to step up and condemn that just as much.
Absolutely.
And, and I appreciated Ted coming on. And look, this is a show where both sides of many issues are going to be able to share their perspectives It's totally unlike any other show you're going to have in Colorado, where many of them are driving an agenda. But that was the kind of back and forth Ted and I had yesterday.
No, I thought it was great, and I understand his point, but you weren't saying everyone, of course not.
Yeah,
it's a small percentage, I'm sure. However, when you're promoting that stuff, man, it gets a little dangerous. So, I mean, we could talk about it for hours, but Chris is waiting, so I'll hit baseball.
And Jake Cave, on the first pitch he sees, rips it into right center field. And for the second consecutive game, the Rockies get a win in extra innings.
All right, Jerry Schimmel. Rockies win at 8-7 the final, 57 in Littleton, 56 in North Glen, 59 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue with Chris. It's Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Temperatures reaching the lower 80s today, partly cloudy, a few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms, upper 50s and low 60s tonight. Sunny, warm, upper 80s to near 90 Wednesday, an isolated late-day thunderstorm, 50s as we clear out Wednesday night. Independence Day Thursday, cooler, only 75 to 80, 50s Thursday night, low to mid-80s Friday with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Sotomayor, in a dissent that reads like a text message, wrote, when he uses his official powers in any way under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune. I am not making that up. That is the dissent written by Sotomayor yesterday in the U.S. Supreme Court decision. Now, joining us in studio is Chris Murray. He's a partner with First and 14th Law to give us some analysis. Have we just now turned the United States into a dictatorship, into a monarchy, into something that doesn't resemble the United States anymore?
No. So Justice, we can talk about the opinions and substance. Justice Sotomayor's dissent, there is a fair debate here, right? I think even after this opinion, obviously the law now is that a president is absolutely immune for exercise of his core constitutional authority, right? So that's like the appointment of ambassadors, negotiation of treaties, these sorts of things, right?
The sending of drones to kill Americans abroad?
No.
Hold on, Obama.
Yeah. So no. But for other official acts, there is a presumption of immunity, and the presumption of immunity is simply, look, and by the way, this is easy to say simply right now because now judges have to do the hard work in Trump's case of sorting between what is what. But the presumption of immunity goes like this. If it's an official act, he's presumptively immune unless law enforcement prosecutors can demonstrate to a court that a prosecution for this act will not harm the ability of the executive branch to function as an independent and co-equal branch of government. Basically, so for example, hey, we're going to go ahead and prosecute a former president for a military coup for trying to hold on to power. Okay. I would venture a guess that in the aftermath of such a foiled coup, that a judge is going to say, actually, no, I don't think that's going to hamper the executive branch prosecuting this guy. That's actually probably going to help the executive branch if he is prosecuted.
Okay, so they put 3 different buckets, right? Total immunity, presumed immunity, and then
no immunity,
and then a no immunity. And
Yep.
what is no immunity?
Private acts, right? So things that are totally private acts, or things that are totally outside of the scope of the president's powers. For example, and I'll use an example that Justice Amy Coney Barrett gave in her concurrence, right, where Justice Roberts didn't really address this in his majority opinion, but Coney Barrett said, well, look, like calls to the Speaker of the House and the legislature in Arizona to try and get the Arizona legislature to convene a special session to appoint a new set of electors. Justice Barrett said, whatever you think about the bona fides of that, like whether he should have been doing it or not, the president has no role and no control over state legislatures under the Constitution. So that's not an official act. And to the extent that he did something criminal when he made those calls, prosecuting him for that couldn't possibly harm the federal executive branch, because presidents don't have any authority over state legislatures.
So in those particular cases, you're going to see them go back and basically separate them into the 3 buckets then.
That's basically what Justice Roberts said. Congratulations, district courts. Here's some fresh new law. Go ahead and apply it.
Some job security for you all.
Yeah, well, they already have the best job security, but yeah, no, they'll the judge overseeing Trump's case in the District of Columbia, and also the judge down in the District of Florida, right? They'll both now have to apply this framework in their cases.
So oftentimes in politics, both sides over-exaggerate, right? So on one side will go, this is a clear victory. Donald Trump, has been vindicated, that type of thing. And then the other side, I think it was Sheldon Whitehouse. This is the worst thing ever to happen to this country. We're now going to end up with a monarchy or a dictatorship. So it sounds, in reality, it's kind of in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a big deal. I mean, for constitutional law, this is a big deal. And Justice Sotomayor's, the tone of her dissent, I think, really was shameful and a disservice to the court. However, there's a real argument here on the other side. Okay. I mean, I don't want your listeners to come away thinking that there's no argument that presidents should not be immune. The impeachment judgments clause, right? So this is Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7 of the Constitution. It's short, so I can read it, right? It says, judgment in cases of impeachment, that means the judgment of the Senate, right? Sitting as a court in an impeachment trial, which we just saw twice. Both times President Trump was acquitted. Okay. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Okay. I think most people know that part. There's a colon after it, and it says colon, but the party convicted, that means the person convicted, in this case, the president, shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to the law. Right. So there is an argument here that the framers said, well, certainly if somebody is impeached and convicted, right, they may be indicted, potentially even for official acts. And I think the best part of Sotomayor's dissent and also Justice Brown's dissent is, they argued that, look, at least if there is a conviction at impeachment, there cannot possibly be immunity after that for official acts. And the 6-3 majority said, no, there actually is still immunity for that. Even if somebody is convicted and you can be impeached for anything, right? But an impeachment conviction, for example, for appointing, let's say it was a series of ambassadors who turned out to be foreign agents, right, and sabotaged the United States foreign policy. The Senate would be justified in impeaching a president for failing to exercise his authority properly in the appointment of those ambassadors. However, the Supreme Court has now said he could not be criminally tried for that.
Why not?
Well,
because it's official, because of the official acts, right?
It is a core power of the presidency that is enumerated in the Constitution.
Okay.
Now, Chris Murray, how does this square with McConnell's argument during the second impeachment that we didn't need the second impeachment in Trump's case because he could be held criminally liable? It seems that the Supremes have said, nope, he can't.
Well, this is the second best part, by the way, of Justice Sotomayor's dissent. Justice Sotomayor actually went through and quoted not Mitch McConnell, but Trump's own impeachment counsel, right, who made several representations during that trial. Hey, look, if you guys really think he what are we doing here? He's out of office in 2 weeks. If you guys really think he committed a crime, surely he can be prosecuted. The bottom line is it actually really it doesn't square well, right? However, I think both Mitch McConnell and President Trump's impeachment counsel at the time, right, that was the state of the law. The state of the law at the time was presidents aren't immune. This is new law.
Yeah, so that's a little spooky if we think about it that way. That you can't, if you impeach someone, then they no longer can be held liable criminally, nor could So that's the idea. Is regardless of impeachment or not, the president just gets a get a jail free card.
Well, I mean, but I'll say this, and for the record, I have personally, right, as an attorney, mixed feelings about this because I think that there are really good arguments on both sides of this, and immunizing presidents from criminal prosecution, even for the exercise of official acts, right, that is a big deal. Yeah. And candidly, I think the executive branch is way too powerful already. The federal executive branch is way too powerful. Part of the reason there's so much division in this country is that it's all about getting the presidency now. Like, we have this pseudo-imperial presidency, and we could go on forever about that, why that is. My pet thing is I agree with Justice Gorsuch. It's because Congress doesn't want to do its job. We're supposed to have a powerful Congress and a weaker executive. But, this is, Bill, it is a big deal. It is a change to the way our government functions, but I don't know about a get out of jail free card, like you said, because if you think about a president who is abusing his or her office to the point where that president is actually impeached and removed, that hasn't yet happened in our country's history, right? That sort of a person getting removed from office and politically banished, like basically getting sent like Napoleon to Sardinia, right? That's probably enough punishment for most megalomaniacs.
Well, the question I would have is what brings you to the conclusion that, given our two-party system, that people of the party of the president who's being accused of the impeachment crimes would ever vote to impeach him? I disagree that we are in an environment in which members of the Democrat Party will vote to impeach a Democrat president, or members of the Republican Party will vote to impeach a Republican president. I don't think it happens anymore.
Well, I mean, let's not forget, the only party that has had crossover votes in favor of impeachment is the Republican Party.
Yeah, but again, it's a handful. So saying they have votes, the fact we didn't get to an impeachment sort of moots your entire argument there in some ways.
I don't know about that, Bill. I mean, so first thing I'll say, I didn't have the conclusion that we would have crossover votes for impeachment, but I'll say, for example, I do think at a different time in our republic, right, if Richard Nixon would have proceeded to an impeachment trial, he would have been convicted. There would have been Republican votes there to convict him.
In theory, though, this law now exonerates him, though. So what he did is okay because it was part of his official acts.
So there, now that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
The first impeachment trial, right, where we have a president's impeachment counsel getting up and saying, well, he's immune for this, so it can't be a high crime or misdemeanor. That will be sophistry when it happens, because Justice Roberts is at pains to say the impeachment power is a political process, and the Senate is absolutely free to impeach for any reason, and we're not limiting. There is no immunity from impeachment, right? And obviously, you couldn't say that. However, if that argument happens in the Senate, yes, that will be absolute sophistry. That would be the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, and the thing that I think we've come to the conclusion, though, is unfortunately now the only time you're going to get an impeachment is when the opposite political party has enough votes in the Senate. And it won't matter beyond that as far as if there's a crime or not, because it's the only way you're going to be able to ever hold any sort of presidential power accountable.
I mean, for now, I think that's right. I'll also say, right, an impeachment of a president is a big deal. And I think in order like that, it has to be seen as legitimate, right? And so in order for impeachment to work,
does it have to be? Because here's the idea. I disagree with you. I don't think that an impeachment has to be seen as legitimate nor legal or in any way, shape, or form, because the second one, the first two, the two against Trump, aren't viewed as legitimate. The Democrats don't view the impeachment against Clinton as legitimate. And we've had a motion from all sorts of Republicans in the House right now to just impeach Biden for anything.
Yeah.
No, but not Mike. I'm not talking about Marcus. I'm talking about president.
But Mayorkas as well. Yeah.
I know, but that's different than what the immunity covers, because the immunity is presidential power.
Right.
What we could have, though, is that President Biden could put his cabinet positions and even his ambassadors up for sale. It could just be highest bidder, because that's an official power he's granted.
Oh, you mean kind of like the Clinton White House?
Exactly. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Same thing. Yeah. And ways that we give out other ambassadorships based on whether or not it's now legal.
Yeah, right. That's actually probably unfair to the Clinton White House. A lot of White Houses. Yeah. Hey, I'd like to be the ambassador to Liechtenstein.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But now the issue is you can now do it out in the open. You can now solicit bids in the open because it's no longer illegal.
Yeah. I mean, so I actually don't. Maybe once you're in office, you could do that. I think there's a political consequence to that still. But I'll also say, Bill, you're right that Democrats did not think the Clinton impeachment was legitimate. A lot of Republicans did not think the Trump impeachment was legitimate. There are a lot of Republicans who thought that second one was legitimate after what happened on January 6th.
Not anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I still know some who think it might have been a good idea, but
the Venn diagram is shrinking rapidly.
Sure. Well, we're getting closer to an election.
Exactly.
But I think that what the founders were concerned about with impeachment, right? And I think the founders would disagree with you, right? The founders think that an impeachment, because it is the legislature rising up and removing an executive, right? There has to be popular will behind that, like some understanding of legitimacy, which is why they provided for a trial, I think, in the Senate and both houses of Congress having to have a part in this, because it's the people's house that brings the charges, right? And then the deliberative Senate, right, who sits as a jury. The founders, if you read the records of the Constitutional Convention, were worried about a situation where they try to impeach and the president says, too bad, so sad, I'm not leaving. Army, go kill those guys, right? And so I actually think the founders were terribly worried about it looking legitimate. And to the extent, even though George Washington hated parties, the founders knew that factionalism would happen. And that's why they made it a 2/3 vote, because they thought we've got to have some of the president's own faction turn on him in order to, when he says, Army, go get those guys, to make the soldiers say, sorry, we're not doing that. The Congress said, you're out, buddy.
Yeah, I agree. They were afraid of a unitary executive, and now the Supreme Court has granted a unitary executive.
So I think that is, Bill, the strongest point. It is the best point that Sotomayor made in her dissent. Yeah. I wish that she wouldn't have mixed it with this sophomoric, language about, fearing for our democracy. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
Talking with Chris Murray, partner with First and 14th Law. We'll continue this conversation and phone calls. Frank, we'll get to you in just a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Chris Murray, he's a partner with First and 14th Laws, joining us live in studios. We dissect and understand what that U.S. Supreme Court decision yesterday, as it relates to the presidency and immunity, really means moving forward for this country. Let's go to the phone lines and take some questions here. Frank, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks, Chris, for your comment. Going forward, Chris, on July the 11th, the New York judge, what's his name, Marshawn or Marshawn?
Sean, yes.
Has the potential power to either sentence Trump to arrest or house arrest or some other type of detainment. Do you think that could force a constitutional crisis if he did that? And what would Trump's options be to defer that or deny that? Does he have any? And what would be your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, so good question, Frank. First thing, the Judge Marshawn is not at all impacted by what the Supreme Court just ruled, because and I, by the way, I recognize that. I think you know that. I'm just for Jeff and Bill's listeners, that crime. The thing that Donald Trump was convicted of,
air quotes going
right? Yeah, the thing that Donald Trump was convicted of was an action that he took before he was president, while he was running for president. So the Supreme Court's decision yesterday has nothing to do with that. You asked, though, hey, we're putting the Republican Party's nominee for president into jail or maybe home confinement, which would keep him from campaigning. Would that occasion a constitutional crisis? I don't know about a constitutional crisis, but a political crisis, I think so. I'll say that, you know, if it's home confinement or even jail, right? The idea that Donald Trump cannot effectively campaign from jail or home, I think Joe Biden disproved that in 2020 when he campaigned from essentially his basement. I think Donald Trump will probably be a lot better at campaigning from one location like that. I did not think that there would be a conviction in that case in New York, so I've been wrong about that thing as it has gone along. I now would not put it past Judge Marshawn to incarcerate President Trump or to sentence him to home arrest, just, by the way, the Thursday before the Republican National Convention. So, as I say a lot, like, what a time to be alive.
I don't think this stuff is working at all. I think it's backfiring. I think Steve Bannon went to prison yesterday as a political martyr with people outside cheering him on. And you get into what you're seeing even among focus groups and polls is that you're getting into the bullying factor, where people are just going like, knock it off. Quit using any power you have to beat up your opponent.
You know, Chris, I'm more concerned about the actual risk to Trump's life when you put him behind bars. And that's a concern to me. I mean,
he won't go behind bars. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's no way. There's no way that the federal government will ever put a former president behind bars. You can't get him in a you can't get him in a general population, and you can't put him into solitary confinement legally. Frank, this is what's going to happen. If they're going to sentence him to jail, he will not be sentenced to a regular prison or any sort of a jail. What they'll do, and I'd be willing to put money on this, what they'll do is if he gets a prison sentence, they'll confine him to a military base and housing. That's the only way you can make sure a president is safe, because you put a former president into jail, he becomes the number one target, because you want to rule that jail. You take him down immediately. It is too much. It is too much of a personnel risk.
No way, Billy. Donald Trump runs the yard at Rikers. You don't know that?
No, he gets punked in the first 30 seconds. He gets taken down so quickly and so bad because you just took the billionaire down. You want to run that place? That's the quickest way to get to the top of the food chain.
Frank, I appreciate the call. We just got to move on. Let's go to Tony in Littleton. Tony, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning. Hey, Chris. So it was my understanding when the case was remanded back to the district court, I think it was stated she has to hold hearings around this to determine what evidence is workable and not. If that's right, then doesn't that mean the special prosecutor then is going to be bringing forth his witnesses, and which he would not play before a trial typically, but he would then be bringing in Pence and bringing in the Speaker of the House in Arizona to say, okay, this is what happened, and get their testimony. and then she's going to evaluate it. But so won't there be hearings that will be revealing all this evidence?
I mean, so Tony, great question. And I think you're talking about the prosecution, the J6 prosecution in the District of Columbia.
I am.
In front of Judge Chutkan. So yes, so there's a little ambiguity here. I mean, I think first Judge Chutkan is probably free to take a look at the incredibly lengthy indictment in that case, right? And say, okay, well, I can put there's a few of these charges that I think go in these different boxes, right? But I think, especially if she's looking to deal with anything that is in that middle category, that presumptive immunity category, but where that presumption can be rebutted if there's no harm to the function of the executive branch, I think she absolutely has to have an evidentiary hearing on that. And she may even have to have an evidentiary hearing on the nature of the communications of Trump, for example, with the Speaker of the House in Arizona. Why? To make sure it really is outside of that presumed immunity. And I think you'll have probably pretty extensive hearings on that. I don't.
Yeah. So
on those hearings,
so the timing of that is then a question. There is a question about timing because I've heard it could be literally September that she could be holding hearings. The special prosecutor has to decide, okay, this case may never get to trial, especially if he's elected. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to fire every bullet I've got in the evidentiary hearing.
I think that's probably right, Tony. I think it's a very perceptive observation. I think Judge Chutkan has to decide what she wants to do there and when she can make the hearings happen. The one thing is President Trump would not need to be there for those hearings.
Correct, but the American public, that would be the one chance where they're re-showing all that film and saying this is what happened and this is what caused it, and so the American public will get a shot to see this, even if it's not in a formal hearing. They would or trial. They have a chance to see it in the hearing about the evidence itself.
Oh, I think if
I've got it right.
I think, and Tony, I do think you have it right. In the end, it's up to the judge and the special prosecutor when they want to schedule this. But I think we're going to know in the next 2 to 3 weeks if that's going to happen.
Hey,
Tony, thanks so much for the call. Always appreciate Tony calling in. We're talking with Chris Murray, partner with First and 14th Law, about the U.S. Supreme Court decision that came down yesterday with regards to presidential immunity. We'll continue this conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us live in studio is Chris Murray, a partner with First and 14th Law. Chris, I want to ask you about Steve Bannon. Yesterday, outside the jail, leading a rally. Man, Nelson Mandela time. He's a political prisoner.
Man, I'm a lawyer. What am I going to do with that? Steve Bannon and Nelson Mandela in the same sentence. I'm not sure that those one of these things is not like the other thing. But I mean, he did hold a rally.
Yeah.
Steve Bannon is the first, so he was the first person to be indicted by the Department of Justice for contempt of Congress since 1983, when a former Reagan official, Rita Lavelle, who was alleged to have misused some Superfund monies when she was at the EPA, was indicted for it, was actually cleared of those charges. The last person to be found guilty of contempt of Congress, do you know, Bill?
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh, got you.
Oh, yeah,
got you. Yeah, that's what you didn't have a chance to go to the internet and check.
Who is it?
So
I thought
G. Gordon Liddy.
Oh, God, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was
That
a
is good one.
plumber, right?
He was one of the Watergate conspirators.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what does it say about our process that this is as often as we prosecute someone for contempt of Congress? It basically means those subpoenas and everything aren't worth the paper they're printed on.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a whole different thing. I mean, because as I think you guys know, I know a little bit about congressional subpoenas. I represented the Republican National Committee when they got a subpoena from J6. Those subpoenas are actually worth quite a bit because ordinary people are absolutely terrified of them.
Yeah.
But when the rubber meets the road, you're right.
Yeah, they don't mean anything. It's basically congressional subpoenas are just like when you used to get those photo radar tickets. So it's a mere suggestion.
Are you one of those guys who wears the monkey mask going through the camera?
If I knew the cameras were coming quickly enough, I would have. Someone in this conversation might have gotten the photo radar ticket.
Why
recently.
is Bannon going into prison and someone like Eric Holder never is? Or
I mean, so it is pure political will. Okay, and I'm not. Look, Steve Bannon put up his proverbial middle fingers when he got a congressional subpoena, right? That's the sort of thing Congress can hold you in contempt for. But Congress doesn't have a prosecutor, right? They don't have the ability. All Congress can do is say, here, Department of Justice, will you please prosecute this person? Okay, well, the reason Eric Holder wasn't prosecuted is because who was running the Justice Department at the time, right? It was the Obama administration. In fact, it was Eric Holder. So, he wasn't going to prosecute himself. And this is what tends to happen, right? What is interesting is, by the way, the Reagan official, right, who was prosecuted for contempt of Congress, that is a Republican prosecuted by a Republican administration. G. Gordon Liddy, same thing, a Republican plumber prosecuted by a Republican administration. It used to be a little bit more bipartisan. Now, basically, if you've got the executive branch and the Congress, you might prosecute for that. Otherwise, the practicalities just mean that it doesn't happen very often.
In the next hour, Billy, I want to get into how this continues to play into the lawfare narrative. I mean, Steve Bannon able to hold a rally outside of this, turning it into a political show. He's going to go spend 4 months. He's going to bite the bullet. Come on, bring it to me. And we'll play the audio too of this, where he's like, basically, if this is what I've got to do to fight this corrupt government, I'll do it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Now keep this in mind. Every time Bannon's talking about, I'm fighting, I'm going to go to jail for you. Just earlier this week, he was asking the Supreme Court to keep him out. Last week, he asked the Supreme Court to keep him out. He delayed everything he possibly could to avoid going to prison. And now he's like, I am the fighter. My butt. Pull the other one. It plays Jingle Bells.
All right. Chris Murray, First and 14th, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. By the way, you can turn and adjust your radio listening experience into a visual experience by visiting 710 KNUS on YouTube, X, or Rumble, and watch the show right there as well. I'm your coach, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. And depending on where you fall along the political lines, this next conversation may be very interesting to you. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history. Mr. Steve Bannon, who's going to wake up this morning in a jail cell. Are we at a point where we're just going to be doing this to our political opponents? We'll get into this and more. We cover all of the critical analysis, news, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news, we're going to get into Steve Bannon's rally outside of the prison yesterday. Got some powerful audio there, but let's check in first with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 60 and partly cloudy in Denver. Expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
The American people must decide. They want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it.
President Biden reading his speech again last night. Former President Trump looking to have his New York Democratic weaponization case thrown out hours after the U.S. Supreme Court issued its landmark ruling about presidential immunity. Trump's lawyers filed a letter with the judge looking to set aside the recent guilty verdict, saying evidence was introduced that is now protected. Biden says he agrees with Justice Sotomayor.
I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent.
All right, here's the most important part of the newscast. What does Chris Murray from First and 14th Law think? He joined Jeff and Bill last hour and says Sotomayor does have an argument.
So there is an argument here that the framers said, well, certainly if somebody is impeached and convicted, right, they may be indicted, potentially even for official acts. And I think the best part of Sotomayor's dissent and also Justice Brown's dissent is they argued that, look, at least if there is a conviction at impeachment, there cannot possibly be immunity after that for official acts. And the 6-3 majority said, no, there actually is still immunity for that.
The Democrats rolling out this guy again, former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who the media says defended the Capitol during the January 6th riot.
I was there when Donald Trump encouraged a mob of supporters to march on the Capitol to try to overturn the results of a free and fair election. I remember it clearly. While they were beating officers with flags, Donald Trump is still the single greatest threat to our democracy. It was true yesterday, and it's true even more, especially after this ruling right now.
Pulling out all the stops. Nancy Pelosi could have stopped all that with the National Guard, right?
Yeah, and Blake, I just wanted to remind people of a tweet that went out that same day. I'm asking for everyone at the United States Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Right. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. Wow. Donald J. Trump, January 6th. So, you know, that whole encourage everybody to mob with the violence. I'm like,
he's such a huge threat to democracy.
Remain peaceful and no violence.
I'm
and
sure
respect the people in blue. Oh, my
gosh. And he didn't say that in the speech either, did he? Yeah, and no one was looking at Twitter at the time. 2 teenagers arrested after a Monday morning car chase in Douglas County. It began after deputies spotted a stolen black pickup truck that was linked to a series of vehicle break-ins in Castle Pines. The truck sped away when deputies tried to pull it over, and the pursuit ended when the truck spun out. Deputies reportedly found a handgun when they searched the vehicle, and the 2 suspects faced car theft and gun charges. That is, a house in Weld County burned to the ground after it was struck by lightning. It happened in the small community of Carr, and the homeowner was in his garage when he heard a massive boom. The fire ignited quickly. Strong winds fanned the flames, and a lack of fire hydrants in the area made battling the blaze difficult for firefighters. All that's left of the home is a charred pile of rubble, but nobody was hurt. Lakewood authorities once again say a woman entered the First Bank on South Wadsworth. She had a weapon and demanded money before she fled. She is described as white, between 50 and 70 years old, and at least 5'3", with a thin build. Anyone with information on her should contact Metro Denver Crime Stoppers, but watch out, she's intimidating.
5'3", 70 years old. So I've been thinking more about this case. Really,
Yeah.
they couldn't find where she went.
Right. How did that?
She Usain Bolt, she sprint down the street, no one can find her after that.
What was she driving? Was she walking? Was she on a bike?
She got into her Palomino. Slowly drove away.
66 Galaxy 500.
She's the lady with the left blinker on driving down the street. Really? You couldn't find her?
Oh man, I don't mean to laugh, but doggone, come on. She can't get away. There's no way. Wow. All right. Well, it's
well, hold on real quick too. Bill, Blake, I can keep going with this. What kind of world are we in where 70-year-old women, 5'3" women are robbing banks for money? You know, like
Right, no,
maybe
great
that's
point.
an indictment on how things are going. The economy is so good under Joe Biden, your grandma will be robbing banks to pay.
No doubt. No doubt. I agree with you. Well, it's a common sight in downtown Denver. Police say that street side car window washing is illegal. Yes, it is. Denver police have distributed flyers throughout the city to remind window washers that the practice isn't allowed. How about a ticket? Let's get Barney Fife out there. Come on.
And Jake Cade, on the first pitch he sees, rips it into right center field. And for the second consecutive game, the Rockies get a win in extra innings.
All right, 8-7 the final there. Thank you, Jerry Schimmel. 57 in Broomfield, 58 in Englewood, 60 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Tuesday morning. If you see that older lady walking around with a gun and cash, go after her. No, I didn't say that. Make sure she's not armed. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 7:10 5-day forecast. Temperatures reaching the lower 80s today, partly cloudy. A few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms, upper 50s and low 60s tonight. Sunny, warm, upper 80s to near 90 Wednesday. An isolated late-day thunderstorm, 50s as we clear out Wednesday night. Independence Day Thursday, cooler, only 75 to 80. 50s Thursday night, low to mid-80s Friday with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Steve Bannon waking up this morning in prison. The result of a political prosecution or the necessary steps to follow somebody that won't properly respond to requests from Congress for information. This from the Associated Press. Trump ally Steve Bannon surrenders to federal prison to serve a 4-month sentence on contempt charges. Steve Bannon, a longtime ally of Donald Trump, was taken into custody Monday after surrendering at a federal prison to begin a 4-month sentence on contempt charges for defying a subpoena in the congressional investigation into the U.S. Capitol attack. Bannon arrived at the Federal Correctional Institution in Danbury, Connecticut around noon and was formally taken into custody, the Bureau of Prisons said. Speaking to reporters, Bannon called himself a political prisoner, said former President Donald Trump was very supportive of him, and slammed Democrats, including Attorney General Merrick Garland. I'm proud to go to prison, he said. He's taking us and he's standing up to Garland's corrupt DOJ. Here's some audio from the rally he held yesterday.
I'm going to prison today. I am proud to go to prison. If this is what it takes to stand up to tyranny, if this is what it takes to stand up to the Garland, corrupt, criminal DOJ, if this is what it takes to stand up to Nancy Pelosi, if this is what it takes to stand up to Joe Biden, I'm proud to do it.
He's in good spirits. He told people, don't write him any letters. He's not going to respond to them. And even don't pray for me. Pray for my enemies. All right. So, Billy, I got one word for Democrats about this.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Okay.
Get ready. We have crossed the Rubicon. We'll start sending out subpoenas. And if Republicans get control of the DOJ, then I guess we'll probably do this to the other side as well. We are now in a position where this country will be putting its political opponents in prison until one side or the other decides they've had enough of it.
Oh, okay. So defying a congressional subpoena now gets you in jail. And
sounds like that's coming, Merrick Garland.
And the threat is what?
Going to jail.
Okay. Again, this is the weird part is it seems like you're threatening that the system's supposed to function. Okay. I don't understand. But
it requires two things. One, not only that the subpoena, but that the DOJ seeks to prosecute it. And what Democrats have demonstrated under Joe Biden's presidency and Merrick Garland's leadership at the DOJ is that we will prosecute our political opponents.
Yeah, and
so
Trump,
Republicans.
And the same thing happened under previous DOJs. Yeah, that happens. Yes, and Justice Chris Murray outlined
the 80s.
Yeah, but
when Republicans did it to other Republicans.
Well, there were times in which Republicans investigated Democrats as well, and then used the DOJ to go after them as well, and same thing. And so this is kind of this de rigueur. This is exactly what happens. And as Chris Murray outlined, that this only works if you have a DOJ that then would be in the opposite party, because they're not going to hold people of their own party accountable. So again, I don't see necessarily the threat.
This makes me frustrated with the direction of our country. We're at a point now where we're just going to use the power of the government, not to make arguments as to why our policies are better than the other guys or anything like that. We are going to utilize the powers given to Congress and then the powers given to the DOJ to put our political opponents in prison.
I mean, that.
Why
we've been doing.
No, we haven't been doing this.
We have.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Name a Democrat that was put in prison by a Republican?
Oh, no, I'm talking about we try to all the time. Yeah, sure.
No. You said we do this,
yes,
Billy.
No,
when was the last time a Republican put a Democrat in prison?
Okay, hang on a second. You are making the assumption that this is a political prosecution.
100%.
Steve Bannon was issued a congressional subpoena. Should he have to respond to that, or should you have to respond to that, or should I have to respond to that? Should you have to respond to a congressional subpoena or not?
I do. I think so.
Okay. So how is it a political prosecution when Steve Bannon gets sent to prison because he didn't respond to a subpoena?
There's a second aspect of this, which means the DOJ has to agree to prosecute. Just because you violate a congressional subpoena does not necessarily mean you're going to jail automatically, because Congress can't put you in jail.
Yeah,
it's the executive branch that does. So the executive branch has to take it up. And as we saw with Chris in the previous hour, this doesn't happen. Oftentimes it's ignored.
Yeah, but there were a number of Republicans that ignored the January 6th committee subpoenas, and none of them are really being prosecuted. There's Bannon, you've got some Navarro, there aren't a lot of them. Jim Jordan's not being prosecuted for what he did. So the idea that we're now having this great political prosecution, I disagree with. It's going to be picked and choosed, and it's going to be the same thing it always has been. If the executive is in charge and they're of a different party than the people they want to prosecute or look at that, yeah, absolutely. That's what happens. Yeah, that's been what we've been doing for at least a decade now. Yeah, exactly.
That's where I don't understand, Bill. What do you say? This is what we've been doing for a decade. Name me a Democrat that's been put in prison because of a Republican DOJ. I'm open to it. Give me a call, 303-696-1971. We have crossed the Rubicon now. The only way you can get these Democrats to stop is mutually assured destruction. You got to step up and hammer them the same way they've hammered Republicans. This idea that we're going to be above the fray, we're not going to do this while they do it to us, give me a break. The only way you stop this is to make it just as painful for them as it's been for Republicans. And if, Donald Trump or Barack Obama's attorney general, Eric Holder, is not going to prison because he defied.
Whose fault is that?
His.
No, it's not. It's the Trump DOJ. Trump's DOJ had the chance to get him. They didn't.
What are you talking about? This was the subpoena was done while Eric Holder was the head of the DOJ.
Yeah, which is, again, phenomenally stupid. So when you have a subpoena and you're trying to subpoena the head of the DOJ and you think they're going to respond, it's just like the Republicans recently passing a bill saying that we want Joe Biden to do X, Y, and Z on Israel. Joe Biden doesn't care because he's not going to sign that bill. That is just phenomenally stupid. And they come out and the Republicans came out going, we passed this bill that, the guy that you want to restrict the powers of has to sign it. That's just stupid. But there is another DOJ that did come into power after the Obama administration, and that was a conservative DOJ. They could have enforced this. They could have. They didn't. Okay. So what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? I mean, honestly, this is the problem. You're right that our government is broken fundamentally, but I disagree with the idea that you're running off going, now it is time for revenge. No, this is just how it works. It's broken fundamentally on both sides, and both sides do this.
Bill, I keep going back. If this is just how it works, when have Republicans put Democrats in jail?
Almost nobody goes to jail for this. Also,
yesterday you have somebody.
I know. Oh my gosh, hang on a second.
Bill, you are saying at the same time, this is how it works, and nobody ever goes to jail for it.
Yeah, because nobody ever gets prosecuted for it. Nobody's prosecuting Jim Jordan for it. Nobody prosecuted Holder. There's a long list of people that are not prosecuted for violating congressional subpoenas. They don't mean anything anymore. And that's what we talked about. They decided to prosecute him, just like with anything else. Just like when you're speeding down the road and you're the one that gets pulled over. How come we didn't get all the speeders?
We
didn't get all the speeders.
Totally politically motivated.
No, I mean, no more than anything else is but it was politically motivated for Steve Bannon not to show up in the first place for January 6th. And Steve Bannon says he's proud of this. And Steve Bannon didn't show up because of politics. And now we're surprised he's going to jail because of politics? Close the circle. Circle of life, just like in Lion King. Circle of life. He decides to object to the prosecution. He objects to the subpoena because he believes it's totally political and it's a political dog and pony show, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stand up for you. And then the DOJ of the opposite political party holds him responsible, sends him to prison. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. And then we had Michael Flynn and also get sent to prison in the previous DOJ and then get pardoned by Trump. Same thing. Same stuff. This is how it happens. This is how it happens.
Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro. I'm still waiting for one Democrat that has been put in prison because of a Republican leadership.
You've got two, though, right currently. You've got Navarro and you've got Bannon.
Right. So you made the argument. Again, this happens all the time.
No, I'm talking about the ignoring. I'm talking about the ignoring the subpoenas and everything else and the investigations. This happens all the time. It's it.
Right, but the prosecution doesn't happen.
Okay, but you've got two. You're mad about two out of all the people that have ignored
These
subpoenas.
Aren't just rando people, man.
Two?
These are political operatives that have been put in prison by the opposing party.
Because they defied a subpoena during a process. So then don't defy the subpoena. If you think that you are big enough as a political operative to ignore a congressional subpoena, good luck. And now this is the result. What you want is you want people just to willy-nilly be able to just violate subpoenas and not worry about it. You just want to abdicate that entire situation. Yes, you do.
I don't want to live in a country that does this to its political opponents. One side very clearly is willing to do this. The other side isn't. And the question is, how do you get this to stop? So let's get to the phone lines. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. What do you think of Steve Bannon heading to prison? I love the fact that he's going there with a smile on his face saying, this is how we fight back. He's willing to step up. He believes he's fighting for this country and for the freedoms of this country. And you see just how vindictive, how vicious the left is in this country when I can clearly point out Michael Flynn, Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, all in prison by their political opponents, and nobody can tell me about one Democrat that's been put in prison by its Republican political opponents. This is about political retribution. And I think the voters see it, and they don't like it. Let's go to Ron.
Michael Flynn was prosecuted by Trump's DOJ, so stop doing that one. Yeah, just so you know. That was in Trump's DOJ.
All right, let's go to Ron Greeley. Ron, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Morning, guys. Yeah, Jeff, I'm agreeing with you big time right now because when you just asked Bill, how come we're not getting any answers? And we get sidestepped. There's a little, like a trick pony show going on, but where's the answer? Who have the Republicans put in jail? Where's the answer?
How many people have the Democrats put in jail, Ron? How many?
You're sidestepping the question yet again.
Okay, Ron. So far, Republicans don't have 0, and Democrats have how many? 2? That's a scoreboard. That's a scoreboard, my friend. 2.
Absolutely.
That's it. Okay. 2.
And then
1-0 with the scoreboard.
2.
Billy, you add in the prosecution of Donald Trump and all this, and all of the lawyers attached to Donald Trump in the election. Come on, this is not just 2. This is a major effort to go after political opponents by the Democrat Party. And all I'm asking, Billy, for one person that has been put in prison by Republicans out of a political motivation.
Show me that this. Hang on a sec. But you are
still none.
Hang on a sec. Still none. But Jeff, the problem is that you have assumed this is political motivation. You have assumed they're doing this fundamentally out of politics, and the reason you're doing that, and you've wrapped in all the other stuff going on with Donald Trump, as if Donald Trump didn't do the fraud, as if Donald Trump didn't sleep with a porn star and then try to cover it up. We can talk about whether or not he should have been prosecuted and where it is, but he did those things, and those things have been proven in court. And so you've come to the conclusion, now you're working backwards. That's the issue. You've just concluded this is all political prosecution, and then we're working backwards. Steve Bannon didn't show up to the January 6th committee for politics reasons. Okay, now there's fallout. I would be much happier if the Department of Justice on both sides would hold more people responsible that evade and reject congressional subpoenas. We're not at that point yet. But the idea that you've come to the conclusion that this is all done based on political prosecution is just simply false and doesn't hold up based on the facts.
All right, phone lines are filling up. Ron, continue, please.
Yeah, it does hold up because when you're over here bringing up Trump has slept with a porn star, good golly, talk about going into the past. But yet when we go into the past and talk about what Clinton has done and what Biden has done, when Biden is taking a shower with his daughter at a very precarious age, and those are the words of the daughter. Yep. How come that's ignored? Of course it's political. Everybody can see it except the people that are on the left who do not want to see it. It is literally that simple.
Ron, the reason why the left won't acknowledge this is because when you honestly look at what Democrats are doing to this country, they are destroying it, and they go institution by institution by institution. How great are our schools right now? Those aren't controlled by conservatives. Are you kidding me? They've destroyed the schools. They've destroyed the family. They've destroyed the church. Now they're destroying the law process. And when you bring it up, when you ask them, One simple question: how many Democrats are in prison because of Republicans' retribution through the legal process? They can't name even one. They know they're destroying the legal system. They took something that was neutral. They politicized it. They're putting political opponents in prison. They're attacking the Republican nominee with lawfare and trumped up charges.
Excuse me, what political opponents of the Democrats are in jail? What political opponents?
Steve Bannon's in jail this morning.
I'm sorry, what is Bannon running for? What race is he running in? I don't see where he's an opponent of the Democrats.
Bill, I can't even answer that question.
No,
if
but
you think if it's because he's not running for a congressional seat, he's not a political opponent of the left.
He's an opponent.
He is. He's absolutely a political opponent.
Did Bannon not respond to the January 6th subpoena from Congress?
Yes. What did Eric Holder ignore from Congress too?
Here's the idea. You're just mad about who's prosecuted where. You've come to the conclusion.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm mad about. Who's prosecuted where?
Good. What other political opponents have they put in jail? Where else are the Democrats doing this? You got 2 on me. That's it? Really? Ron, what else do you have? Ron, what else do you have? What else do you have?
To put Donald Trump in jail is the 10,000-pound elephant in the room you seem to be ignoring in this
No,
case.
I'm not. You've come to no, Ron and Jeff. You guys have come to a conclusion that is not borne out by the facts. That's the issue. You want it to be a political prosecution. You can't stomach the idea that the dude you're supporting might have done the crimey crimes. And unfortunately, he's been found liable for fraud in court by a jury of his peers.
Rigged court.
Yep, but it's a jury of his peers,
Ron. It's a kangaroo court, Billy.
How's it a kangaroo court?
That.
No. How Donald Trump was allowed to provide a defense and was allowed to choose the jury, and it had to go to a grand jury beforehand. It wasn't a judge making a decision. So your decision, Ron, and your decision, Jeff, is a jury was rigged. Nicely done. Yeah. Okay,
Billy,
guys.
My boy, you guys are awesome. I thank you for the entertainment, but Jeff is right. And keep on swinging, Bill.
That's fine, man.
Ron, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Phone lines are blowing up on this one. Ron's line is open if you want to give us a call at 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Russell, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Yeah, I would have to say I don't know what the name of this other person is, if he's playing devil's advocate or what it might be, but it's a whole lot more than 2. I mean, it's called political opposition, not just somebody running for that, but there's hundreds and hundreds that have been put in jail by the DOJ from Biden and January 6th. You don't see one person put away from all the BLM riots that went on for over a year, where there was
yes, there are people.
Violence and death.
Yeah, people are in jail because of that.
Very,
and
very few.
And over 15,000 people were charged. That's weird, though, Russell. Just a minute ago, you said none, and now you're saying few. That's weird. That's weird. Okay, keep going.
How many were charged in the BLM riots in Denver? How many are in prison right now because of that?
I don't know that number, but we have
a lot of them get dismissed.
But we have 15,000 across the country, and we have several hundred that have been put behind bars. I'm sorry that breaks your narrative, but okay.
In jail? No, answer the question. How many are actually in jail?
I believe several hundred are, but I believe several hundred are. But
that's made up.
No, it's not.
You're just pulling that out of
nowhere. Okay, sure, Russell.
There's
just
because
you don't like it. Okay.
BLM has.
You're right.
No, it's not.
Obviously,
that I don't like it. It's not true.
Obviously, yeah,
it's
sure. Just like you've concluded that this is all political prosecution. That's okay. Keep whatever
it
is.
Political.
I know whatever color the sun is in your world, I'm sure is pretty today. But keep going.
Mine is actually normal. Yours is actually green and rainbow.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead, Russell.
Later on. Bye.
All right, Russell, thanks for the call. Russell from Denver. His line will be open, 303-696-1971. Ron, we'll get to you in just a bit. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade now. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He embraces our values. He supports the show. He's a fighter out there for what's right. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis is also the son of a police officer and former seminarian, dedicating the last 40 years of his life to helping people who were hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, he is a winner in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. We're going to continue this conversation next because this is an important moment in American history. Are we imprisoning our political opponents, or have these prisoners like Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Michael Flynn, and others violated the law? And this is just due process.
Yeah. And for Russell's edification, there are several hundred BLM protesters that are serving prison sentences between 7 years to 27 months. Okay. Several hundred. Okay. Good. Russell. As for none, appreciate it. Just saying. Just saying.
All right. We'll continue this conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Boy, it's a little spicy here this morning. We're talking Steve Bannon heading to prison. Are we at a moment now where we're prosecuting political opponents, or did they break the law and are rightfully getting their due justice? Here's Steve yesterday outside of the prison.
I'm going to prison today. I am proud to go to prison. If this is what it takes to stand up to tyranny, if this is what it takes to stand up to the Garland, corrupt, criminal DOJ, if this is what it takes to stand up to Nancy Pelosi, if this is what it takes to stand up to Joe Biden, I'm proud to do it.
My question is, why are only Republicans going to prison for defying congressional subpoenas? Eric Holder, Lois Lerner never went to prison for defying congressional subpoenas. We got into a little debate there at the end about BLM. Some interesting facts about what happened here in Denver. So originally you had 389 cases that were arrested. 300 of them were eventually dismissed. Of the remaining cases, 33 people were convicted at trial. 15 people received deferred judgments, so their cases were dismissed if they completed probation. 11 cases were dismissed. One person was found not guilty at trial. And then at the point of this article, 21 cases were remaining open. So out of 389 original arrests, you're looking at about 33 that were actually convicted or taken to trial. The damage from BLM riots were around $5.5 million, and then you had settlements that took place at $4.7 million afterwards, and even $14 million jury awarded to protesters harmed. So is it the same thing? Did we treat BLM protesters the same way we treated January 6th protesters? I don't think so. I think there's a lot more people from January 6th in prison than BLM protesters, but I don't know. Give me a call. Let me know. Let's go to Ron, Colorado Springs. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. You know, one of the biggest mistakes Trump made when he got into office was he tried to play nice. He left Comey in position, I guess, to keep continuity. I found it interesting when he was campaigning, he was always real tough, lock her up, and yet when he had the opportunity to do it, he didn't do it. And yet, ironically, Biden campaigned to bring the country together. And the minute he got in there, he started coming down and attacking not only Trump, but anybody who aligns themselves with Trump. Total opposite how they handle.
I'm not sure, Ron, I agree with that timeline because Trump did ask Jeff Sessions to prosecute Hillary Clinton, and the Department of Justice did decline at that time. Comey also outlined why they wouldn't be able to prosecute Clinton based on what had happened. Now, I can disagree with that. I think there should have been charges for her, but it's not necessarily at the level that has been floated around based on what she did. However, the first charges, if we want to assume for the purpose of just this conversation, that Joe Biden went after Donald Trump, any of those charges weren't filed immediately. In fact, it was more than a year and a half until anything came down the pike from the DOJ towards Donald Trump. And that, in fact, on the Democrat side of the aisle, has been the critique that Merrick Garland waited too long, that they didn't go after him. And that's why Donald Trump is able to delay these cases to beyond the election. So the Democrats would fundamentally disagree with you because they think Garland waited too long because it was more than 18 months until we had the first movement against Trump.
Bill, I think the response to that is you waited or the Democrats, not you, Democrats waited to figure out if Donald Trump was running again.
Bingo.
But the issue,
That's exactly, it was a strategic move by the Democrats.
But he was always running again.
See if he was going to run.
No, he was always running. Yes, he was. Yeah,
come on,
all the
Billy.
time. From the day after he was.
I
yes.
listen to news more than CNN, like you.
Hey Ron, I appreciate the personal aspersion, but you have absolutely no idea the amount of media that I consume in a day. And I appreciate you wanting to denigrate my knowledge based on your poor assumptions, but it doesn't hold up, my friend. I mean, you understand, I spend 5 hours a day with Fox News. Okay. I listen to Newsmax. I watch Newsmax.
Oh, is this
I know. No, but see, Ron, you just don't have any idea about my media consumption nor my
No,
habits.
you're losing it. You're losing it. You're not letting anybody else talk. Yeah, that's comment for you. Just like a little old lady.
But you said something about me, Ron. You said that I didn't do something. I said you're wrong.
At an abortion clinic. Anybody who is friends with Trump, I hope he's learned from the last administration to hard after him when he gets in there and clean house. The swamp is so evil, and the Democrats so evil.
Ron, I will tell you that the conversations at the highest levels of the conservative movement right now, the phrase is mutually assured destruction. Many of them, and they haven't made a ton of news, many of them have been unfairly audited by the IRS. They've been investigated by the FBI. They have faced political prosecution into their own personal lives by an aggressive Democrat-run executive branch, and they feel originally the whole idea was we were going to be above this. We want to maintain the republic. At this point, the only way they feel they can save this country is to make it just as painful on the other side, so this type of political prosecution ends.
I hope so. That's my prayer. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you, Ron. I just don't think people, at the end of the day, I don't think people want to live in this country like this. I don't want political prosecution. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, I don't want political prosecution.
Yes, you do.
No,
yes,
I do not.
You do, and a lot of the Republicans do. Just right now, you're talking about revenge. Yes, you do.
I think it's the only way to get this to stop.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that would be interesting if and only if in 2015 there weren't large Trump supporters chanting about locking up a political opponent. Chanting about it. And that would be prior to the Biden DOJ going after your assumption political opponents. That would be weird.
And at the end of the day,
that's strange.
They didn't go after him.
I know, but that was weird that they chanted, and Trump supporters are mad that they didn't. He didn't fulfill the promise. That was weird, huh? The fact that we're assuming that this just started under Biden, but it was chanted during 2015.
But that's
strange,
a difference. You don't think there's a marked difference between chanting and actually doing it?
You have the assumption, and you've come to the conclusion that they're actually doing it. I disagree. They're actually doing it. Yeah.
You don't think political prosecution's taking place right now?
Which ones? What do you think is a political prosecution?
Well, you just said it's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think it is. What ones do you think is happening? And we can talk about those specifically.
No.
I don't think so.
You don't believe in the Trump trials and Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro
I believe
going after Catholics because they protest outside of an abortion clinic, writing down the license plates of parents attending school board meetings. This is all stuff that FBI agents have said is happening.
Yeah, why were those license plates written down? So we've discussed this before. Why were they written down? You know this. We've talked about it. Why?
No, I don't remember us talking about this at all.
You know why? Because they were issuing death threats. The only people that were investigated by the Department of Justice that went to a school board were those that were issuing death threats.
That's not what FBI agents have said.
Yes, it is. Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, they were investigating people that issued death threats to school board members and teachers.
They were blanketly collecting.
No, they were not.
Yes,
no, they were not.
License plates of parents attending.
No, they were going after individuals that was the investigation. Were individuals that were issuing death threats. Those were the individuals that were being investigated. Yes. That is exactly what happened.
In all of this. So all of this going on, you look at what's happening with the Biden administration, and you don't see any political prosecution utilizing the Department of Justice.
I don't see Biden using the Department of Justice to go after his political opponents. No, I do not see that. I don't. And are they being selective on who they go after based on the subpoenas? Yes, because they're not going after everybody. They're not going after every Republican that violated the subpoena. They're not charging Jim Jordan. They're not charging a large number of other people. They're being selective. And I don't like necessarily the selective nature of many prosecutions, but that happens both in civil and in criminal. Do I believe that Alan Bragg's prosecution of Trump in New York was selective? Yes. Did he stretch it? Yes. Was it the Biden Department of Justice telling him to do it? No, not at all. That was him trying to make a name for himself. And we also have to remember, Steve Bannon is also under other criminal prosecutions for fraud, for defrauding a Veterans Administration, and also fraud for pretending to raise money for a wall that never got built, that he pocketed the cash. So he's got other criminal prosecutions behind him. The idea that this is just because it's political is nonsense. I understand why it feels good, but it's
I
nonsense.
mean, yeah, and I haven't heard an answer as to why he's going to prison and Loris Lerner and Eric Holder aren't, other than the fact that Republicans weren't in charge of the DOJ at the time when those subpoenas came. So,
but then why is it Matt?
I don't know how you have any other answer other than it's politically motivated.
Why is it Matt Gaetz being prosecuted? He's sitting in Congress right now. Why isn't he being prosecuted by Biden's Department of Justice if it was political?
Over what?
Over his playing with the little kids.
Right. I think they looked at the evidence and didn't see. I don't know the details of that case, but I'm guessing they looked at the evidence.
They have declined to prosecute. Again, they have declined to prosecute. But again, your assumption is that they're going after their political opponents. That's weird.
Yeah.
That he would be a political
what's
opponent.
Weird to
He's
me
sitting
is because
in
they
Congress.
don't go after every political opponent. Therefore, all prosecutions are not politically motivated.
But if you say they are, wouldn't it be great to get Gaetz and put him behind bars? It would be great to get him. You've got his cohort that has turned evidence on him. You're not prosecuting him. But again, if it's political, don't you just do it for the dog and pony show? Even though, because the assumption is that it was politically motivated with Donald Trump because he didn't do all the stuff. He didn't do the crimes, but they're doing it for show. Why wouldn't you go get Gaetz for show? If that's the issue, you can hurt Gaetz. You can maybe even get him to resign from Congress, but they didn't do it. That's weird. That's weird if the idea is you're going after political opponents.
I just find it weird that you choose because they don't prosecute everybody, ergo all prosecutions are not political.
Well, you just assume that all prosecutions are. That's the problem. That's a fallacy in your logic.
That's
it.
The fallacy and that I'm trying to figure out is why only Republicans are going to jail and not Democrats. All right. Question from good text message from Corey Nelson.
Old Bar Bob.
Don't forget Denver City Attorney Kristen Bronson dismissed every criminal curfew case against BLM protesters in downtown Denver for, quote, community healing.
Oh, absolutely. And that was completely and totally crap. Just like if you get to see the Denver DA naked, you get to light fires around the city. You know, there are perks. There are perks. And I agree with Corey. Absolutely. And that was completely and totally bogus and crap. And we can talk about it.
Terry in Texas saying nobody can argue with Billy. You have to insult him. Shows how emotionally bound and childish conservatives have become. We're standing with you, Terry.
Appreciate you, Terry. Thank you. All the way from Texas, man. It means a lot. That means a lot, man.
Give us a call on where you land on Steve Bannon heading to prison. 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Am I wrong? 710 KNUS. Phone lines are open. Prove me wrong.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill. Steve Bannon woke up this morning in prison. Are we at a state of prosecuting political opponents in this country? Or is this just getting his comeuppance? Is that what it's called? Because you didn't obey a congressional subpoena. But my question is, where are the Democrats that disobeyed congressional subpoenas? Why aren't they in prison? Let's go to Brian, Colorado. You're on the Jeff and Bill show. News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Hey, morning, Brian.
Hey, I mean, this is so obvious. You know, it goes all the way back to Hillary Clinton at the state of Secretary of State, where she had a private server in New York in a New York house somewhere where classified information and emails were being transmitted and stored on.
No, that's slightly incorrect. She wasn't storing classified information on the server. That's one of the reasons that Comey declined to prosecute. They were discussing classified information, not directly, but there was no classified information that was stored on that server. But it was incorrect.
According to the FBI, right, Billy? According to the FBI, there was no classified information stored on that server, right?
Yeah.
So why do you have a private server in a house in New York? And you're a government employee. I mean, come on. I mean, it doesn't pass the smell test, but because there's not evidence from the corrupt FBI, you say crimes didn't happen.
Yeah, and you wash it all away because it's a corrupt FBI. So nothing happens. So if the FBI investigates anybody, it's obviously corrupt. So you've given an excuse on the other end. While you dislike the investigation, you, however, have absolved yourself of any responsibility. That's okay. But just understand.
How about BlackBerries being destroyed? That's destroying evidence. That's a federal crime in an investigation.
Yeah.
People from her office destroyed BlackBerries.
Yeah.
Are you denying they destroyed BlackBerries?
No, I never argued that they shouldn't be charged for some crimes. I said that. What I'm saying is she did not store classified documents on that server. And they know that because they were able to get into the server. They were able to look. And also the other problem is this. Even if they go and they just throw the server into the water or they burn it down with acid, those classified documents had to be sent from the government. And oddly enough, the government keeps records of those emails. And that's how they could backtrack that, sir. That's how they could backtrack it.
Why do you think you have a private server in your house?
Oh, there were a number of reasons she had it. But again, the issue,
of course.
Hang on a sec. But Brian, the issue is there's no proof of government documents or secret documents on the server. And we would have had to have them transferred from the government. So you would have had to
You're not going to find proof, Billy, when the FBI is corrupt and they're the ones doing the investigation. You're not going to have proof.
Oh,
so,
okay.
but that's nefarious enough. Destroying BlackBerries is physical evidence and proof. None of her cohorts went to jail for destroying BlackBerries.
Yeah, and that was Trump's DOJ. That was Trump's DOJ that did it. So you're mad at Trump's DOJ. I'm sorry, man. I get it. I'm mad at it too. But you're mad at Trump's DOJ. You can't hang this on Biden or the Democrats or anybody else. That was Trump's DOJ that declined to prosecute it. That's it, man. Sorry.
Yeah. Well.
I'm still waiting for the answer to which Democrats are in prison.
And so am I. And so you've got crimes, actual crimes committed by Democrats, and nobody's going to jail. And Rush Limbaugh said this years ago: Democrats never go to jail, and because the Republicans don't go after them. Which I don't get why we're not going after people and not going after them. Just prosecute fairly. Yep. And they should end up in jail.
I agree, Brian. Appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Brian.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
The radio programmers try to calm us down with music after Billy and I go at it.
Yeah, that and I have mandatory medication. I don't want to take the whole glucose. I don't want to.
Oh, boy. Welcome back.
Oh,
It's
so
8
much fun.
a.m. in the Mile High City. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show,
If you're just joining us,
covering
where you
the
been?
hot topics. Man, the text lines are blowing up and the phone calls. Thanks to everybody that participated.
Oh, thank you so
We
much.
talked about Steve Bannon heading to prison, whether or not this was political prosecution or him defying law and rightly going to prison. So people fell on both sides of that.
And
Appreciate everybody joining the conversation.
Oh yeah, love all the calls that called in and challenged me. I really appreciate you. That means a lot. I get a lot of people throwing rocks and stuff, and those that engage in the text messages, we do the best we can. But means something special when you dial those 10 digits in a row and
That's right.
step up to the plate and have this conversation. I honor that more than you know. It means more to Jeff and I than you probably could ever understand. So thanks. I appreciate all of you.
303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Diving into a whole bunch of additional issues. We'll cover big New York Times article yesterday on all the pandemic delays that children are facing as a result of the incredibly stupid decisions we made as a country around COVID. I'll share a little bit of the personal fight we had at our own school, trying to make sure it stayed open, and our kids attend a pretty conservative school. And then the Tractor Supply controversy, have especially businesses that serve middle America learned from Bud Light, Tractor Supply, beep, 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 backing it up in light of some of the DEI decisions they had made after being exposed by Robbie Starbuck. We'll get into that and more. But let's start in with the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 62 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: authorities investigating a deadly crash this morning on I-76 east of 95 at Sheridan. A car and a bicyclist collided. Be safe on the roads today and throughout the holiday week.
This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation.
President Biden says that former President Trump's partial victory in the Supreme Court over immunity sets a dangerous precedent. In an address from the White House Monday, Biden said that SCOTUS's 6-3 decision means there are virtually no limits on presidential power. The High Court ruled Monday that Trump is shielded on some levels from criminal charges for acts he allegedly took in office.
I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent.
And Chris Murray from First and 14th Law was on this morning again with Jeff and Bill, looking at all sides.
So there is an argument here that the framers said, well, certainly if somebody is impeached and convicted, right, they may be indicted, potentially even for official acts. And I think the best part of Sotomayor's dissent and also Justice Brown's dissent is they argued that, look, at least if there is a conviction at impeachment, there cannot possibly be immunity after that for official acts. And the 6-3 majority said, no, there actually is still immunity for that.
Well, new rules laid out today by the Biden administration aim to protect workers from extreme heat. The proposed Occupational Safety and Health Administration standard would require companies to have an emergency heat response plan in place. Regularly scheduled safety training would also be implemented, and a whole lot of water. A couple accused of leaving 190 decomposing bodies in their Fremont County building in Colorado has been offered a deal. John Halford would serve 20 years, and his wife, Carrie, would serve at least 15 if they pled guilty in the state case. They must decide by October before the trial begins, but could accept the deal during next week's arraignment. Fourth, Colorado County is taking action to protect communities from fire. Forecasters say the risk is high this holiday week due to hot temperatures and a lack of moisture. Gilpin County will begin new fire restrictions today, following Boulder County on Monday. Elbert County took a step further last month with stage 2 restrictions. Parts of Lincoln County are in stage 3, which bans all open burning, even for those with permits. DOJ weaponizing runs far and wide. Jordan Peterson talked with trauma surgeon and whistleblower Dr. Ethan Hayem. Incredible story. His children's hospital that he worked out in Houston continued illegal sex change operations. So then this regime's DOJ shows up at his door prepared to ruin him. And he stands strong to this day.
You have the biggest children's hospital in the world that is manipulating, mutilating, and sterilizing young children. So I thought I had to do something. I knew that there were risks. I knew that there were things to fear, but there's something greater to fear rather than the consequences within this world.
Wow, he continues to tell the story. Children's in Houston lied to the public about the existence of their pediatric sex change program.
And Jake Cave, on the first pitch he sees, rips it into right center field. And for the second consecutive game, the Rockies get a win in extra innings.
Rockies won it 8-7. That was Jerry Schemmel. 60 in Aurora, 59 in Arvada, 62 in Denver. And it is World UFO Day today, just in case you didn't know. Jeff and Bill continue. Tuesday
Do you
morning.
believe in UFOs?
No.
I don't either.
Of course not.
I don't either.
I believe in God.
Billy, I would love to know
Maybe.
Billy's
Yeah.
response to this. Do you believe in not UFOs in the sense of military operations, but actual aliens from other countries visiting?
Well, other countries. Yeah, we have a lot of other countries. Yeah,
That was
we got a lot of
I
those.
agree now.
Yes, sir.
That was great.
I think,
My bad.
yes, I think it's one of the few times that all three of us are absolutely going to agree on this one. That was fantastic. Here's the thing: is I have a couple of different layers in looking at aliens. For me, the idea is if our shared creator has basically done this in the universe, and we're the only intelligent life, it seems like a phenomenal waste of space. It could have been much smaller. He could have gone a much smaller. The idea of being like a reptile enthusiast, you don't set up a 25-foot enclosure for a bunch of dart frogs. It doesn't make any sense. It seems like you're just overcompensating for a whole bunch of stuff.
Dart frogs.
Yeah, dart frogs.
What are dart frogs?
Okay, dart frogs are little tiny frogs that are mostly black but have bright colors along their backs, and they're not bigger than the first section on your thumb. So that first part of your thumb, if you bend it forward, that first part where the knuckle is forward to the tip of your thumb, that's as big as dart frogs are. They're called dart frogs because back in the day, that's where you got the poison for the poison darts. The frogs are bright colored and they eat things that are toxic, but their bodies can process it. And the way that they get rid of it is they secrete it across the outside of their backs and their bodies. So then when something else eats it, it gets sick and learns not to eat the brightly colored frogs. Now the ones you get in captivity, though, the poison has been bred out of them, but they still are poisonous. So that's the idea. Is it's just too large of an enclosure. I think it's a phenomenal waste of space. However, I also would say that the largest proof of the fact that intelligent life exists in our universe is the fact they haven't shown up here yet. That seems incredibly smart to avoid this little corner of Alabama in the universe. I think that is incredibly smart. So those are the two things. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at it on that one. Yeah, kind of where I'm at.
Jeff, you don't believe in them.
Nah, I don't.
I believe in humans and snakes and these jokers. It just never
stops.
But I love them. I love them. God, you know, why do you need aliens when you have dogs and pets, right?
Exactly.
And humans. Okay, Jeff and Bill continue Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Temperatures reaching the lower 80s today, partly cloudy, a few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms, upper 50s and low 60s tonight. Sunny, warm, upper 80s to near 90 Wednesday, an isolated late-day thunderstorm, 50s as we clear out Wednesday night. Independence Day Thursday, cooler, only 75 to 80, 50s Thursday night, low to mid-80s Friday with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Saw this out of the New York Times yesterday, and man, it got me going.
I just yelled something in the Adam that sounds really bad if it was in public. That is not a phrase I should yell down the hallway anywhere.
I don't think they heard it.
Good. So that was not good.
Adam's working on something for us in the 9 o'clock hour you're not going to want to miss.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't meant to sound like that. It just those words in order.
I didn't even hear it.
Good. I'm not going to repeat it in public.
The New York Times out with a big article yesterday. The youngest pandemic children are now in school and struggling. Teachers this year saw the effects of the pandemic stress and isolation on young students. Some can barely speak, sit still, or even hold a pencil. The pandemic's babies, toddlers, and preschools are now school-aged, and the impact on them is becoming increasingly clear. Many are showing signs of being academically and developmentally behind. Interviews with more than 24 teachers, pediatricians, and early childhood experts depict a generation less likely to have age-appropriate skills, to be able to hold a pencil, communicate their needs, identify shapes and letters, manage their emotions, and solve problems with peers. Listen to this quote from a pediatrician, Oregon Health and Science University. We asked them to wear masks, not see adults, not play with kids. We really severed these interactions, and you don't get that time back for kids. All right, so there's a few things I want to talk about. That progression that happened in 2020. I remember the early shutdown. I don't really have a problem with the early shutdown. We didn't know much about this virus. People were concerned about it. And the 2 weeks to stop the spread, basically, if you remember, ended the kids' school term that spring, that kind of April, May timeframe. Kids did school outside. They did Zoom a little bit, all that stuff. It was maybe a month, 2 months at the most, but it wasn't that big of a deal, at least in our family. Then the fall came back around, and the left was particularly calling for schools to be closed for the entire year. A lot of those decisions came from health organizations like Tri-County Health that were making recommendations, or not even just recommendations. They had the power to keep these schools shut, because in Douglas County, where our kids go to school, the county commissioners didn't want to keep the schools shut. And what they ended up having to do was to fully separate from Tri-County Health. They had to break in and do an entirely new health situation, because these unelected bureaucrats were making decisions to keep these schools shut. And in some places like Chicago Public Schools, the teachers' unions advocating not only for 1 year to be shut, they wanted to go an additional second year. We have destroyed, I get so angry about this, what we did to these kids, how we set them back, unelected, unaccountable people making decisions to keep these kids out of school. And now we're reaping the effects of it. They can't even hold pencils. They can't have conversations. They can barely speak or sit still. And to their credit, New York Times doing a big article on this bill.
Yeah.
I think I get angry, and I don't have words to fully encapsulate my frustration over this. But the fact that we also just kind of reelected these people, just kind of put them all right back in.
Well, the thing is, I'm not certain that that some of them are unaccountable, because last time I checked, Tri-County Health doesn't exist anymore. So that would be accountable.
Big news. And I created a video.
Yeah.
I created a video because at the time we were deferring so much to Tri-County Health. And I was saying, these are people that don't have to listen to the electorate. There's a reason we live in a republic and a democracy, is because if you get into leadership in our communities and you blow it the way Tri-County Health and these little health dictators did with regards to keeping kids out of school for a whole nother year, there's no way to get rid of them unless you get the other elected officials to step in and essentially dissolve the entire thing and start over again. So my frustration at the time was they're not taking into consideration all the other factors, small businesses and how they have to operate, families that maybe you have dual income and a parent needs to go out to work, and then the long-term effects that keeping kids out of school has had on them. And we have set a generation back as a result of it. And they had no reason, these little health dictators had no reason to listen to anybody, no reason to take into these other, these other complicating issues with regards to their decisions. And we had audio the other day, I don't think we have it up here, Bill, but where the head of the CDC is just calling the other head of the CDC and just blanketly closing down football. I mean, she basically just said, yeah, we shut down the NFL because I called this other person in the other state. They said, we're not going to allow football. So we're not going to allow football. Thank you. Thank you for just making phone calls to each other and blanketly shutting down huge industries. I hate what this country did during COVID with these little health dictators. And I don't think they should ever have the power to do what they did again. All right, well, let's get to the phone lines because I'm fired up over this. All right, Gina, Aurora, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710. KNUS, good morning.
Good morning. I guess I'm a little confused because I have a grandson who was one years old when the pandemic hit. And because Colorado has that law, they passed a law that you can start, there's that preschool or state funded preschool or whatever. So he, has been in preschool since he was 3. He's going to be in kindergarten. I mean, he knows how to hold a pencil. I mean, all that stuff. He knows how to count. He knows his ABCs. He can almost write his name. I guess I'm confused because a lot of kids maybe don't even go to daycare or go to preschool. They don't even start school till they're, in kindergarten. How are the kids that are 5 and under that were, either born around COVID or were very young around COVID, how can they say that's because of the COVID restrictions? Because I don't think the COVID restrictions really affected my grandson.
Yeah, I think it probably has more to do with kids that are in these kind of pre-K, preschool systems where both parents are working, or maybe it's a single mom and they're working, they're sent back. I think kids that are homeschooled probably fared a lot better through the COVID restrictions. Kids that had parents that were regularly engaged with them, teaching them, helping them. I don't think that these problems address them as much. Now, I still think, I don't want to say it's a blanket issue because I mean, you probably saw the videos of the moms getting kicked off of planes because their 2-year-olds wouldn't have masks on. And so the idea that we force this stuff on 2-year-olds and then pulled them off planes, pulled the moms off planes, created that whole scenario, oftentimes without a ton of science to back it up, makes me really frustrated to what we did to kids. And I think it probably affected them. But to this study and to the discussions that the New York Times had, I think it was mostly towards parents that put their kids in preschool. And because they didn't have that option and parents were working and who knows what happened to the kids as a result of it, they probably fell behind.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess I just still don't understand because, my grandson, he didn't have to go to daycare because, family was able to watch him. But as soon as he was eligible to enroll in the preschool program at 3, he went and he was taught, and they didn't wear masks at that time. That's when it all went away. Everybody was back in school. So I just don't know how they can differentiate between kids who just never go, that stay home until they're in kindergarten, because that's the law. Like, you can keep your kids.
Well, Gina, here's part of the article that gets into this. I'll read it to you. The pandemic's effects on older children who were sent home during school closures and lost significant ground in math and reading has been well documented. But the impact on the youngest children is in some ways surprising. They were not in formal school when the pandemic began and at an age when children spent a lot of time at home anyways. The early years, though, are most critical for brain development. Researchers said several aspects of the pandemic affected young children: parental stress, less exposure to people, lower preschool attendance, more time on screens, and less time playing. Yet because their brains are developing so rapidly, they are also well positioned to catch up, experts said. The youngest children represent a pandemic tsunami headed for the American education system. Where he has seen an increase in speech delays and behavioral problems. Now, not every young children is showing delays, but children at schools are mostly Black or Hispanic, or where families have lower incomes, are behind the most, said data released Monday by Curriculum Associates, whose tests are given in thousands of U.S. schools. So does that help understand the question you had?
That's very interesting. I mean, that is one thing my grandson does have is a speech issue. So maybe that is because of the whole pandemic, because, we were under a lot of stress. There wasn't a lot of interaction when his brain was developing. I mean, we would talk to him and stuff, but not, there wasn't like outside type interactions with people.
Yeah, kids are mimics, and one of the ways that they learn is by watching mouths. That's how young babies first start vocalizing, is they start mimicking, because babies don't have any preferential don't have any preference as far as language. They can adopt any language, and when you're younger, you can learn languages much quicker. And part of that is because of how the brain is wired based on absorption, but the other one is because they're really, really good at mimics. And you will watch other people's mouths and you will mimic their speech patterns. That's why babies that grow up in the South have a Southern accent. Same thing. That's why babies that grow up in England have an English accent, which I'm super jealous of. Tried that with my kids and it didn't work out so well.
Did you try to teach them to have
a little bit? Yeah, just a little bit when they're younger.
That's hilarious.
And my one of my daughters, Katie, actually is pretty darn good at it. She is a really, really good mimic. And one of my other daughters naturally falls into it because we just goofed around with it. But I think you're right that some of the idea of not having that exposure to a large number of adults to communicate with, and even other children, but more importantly, at times, it probably wasn't the experience with your grandson, but for the younger kids, masks over the mouths. They are robbed of a lot of the visual cues that they need, especially, and this is the other part, is we have to understand that when we communicate with someone, almost 75% of our communication is nonverbal. And the kids in many ways were robbed of that as well, in part because of the masks, but also because of remote learning.
And here's another good portion of the article that, again, the New York Times talking about the impact that the preschool kids had, the ones that were just born when we went into COVID's having on them as they now get into school. During lockdowns, they say children also spent less time overhearing adult interactions that expose them to a new language, like at the grocery store or the library. And they spent less time playing with other children.
Yeah. Now, Gina, I got a question for you about this one. I have kind of a premise, and I would love to just get your reaction on it. I have a premise that the teachers' union during the pandemic were focused more on the teachers than they were on the students. And I think personally, further on down the road, I think that's the problem with the teachers' union not reflecting a balance. I feel that during the pandemic, the teachers' unions were so concerned about health of the teachers, they ignored the health, the well-being, and the educational goals of the kids. What do you think about that?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, what happened was, I mean, we've set our kids back.
Yeah.
I mean, years. I don't even think we understand the full impact until, you know, a few years down the road, we'll start seeing even more repercussions of these shutdowns.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Gina, I've got older kids. My kids are a little bit older than Jeff's are. Where I see it is social interactions. That's where they were robbed in that 12 to 18 months. Their social interactions are different, more stilted, and they're not as good at reading other kids or even other adults' intentions. The nonverbal skills they needed to develop through middle school and early high school are stunted. They're getting there, but it is taking longer for them to realize a lot of that nonverbal communication, and that's in teenagers.
You know, Billy, Gina, I'm not so angry at the teachers' unions. I know that they were definitely the ones pushing for schools to remain closed for another year. I'm not ignoring that. What gets me through the whole thing are these little health dictators that popped up that were not elected, that really their only expertise was in public health. And look, I know that sounds like, oh, shouldn't you listen to them? That's their expertise. But they'd never run a business, never opened a business, never paid for employees out of their own pockets. They weren't teachers. They aren't experts in children educational development. They aren't experts in foreign trade and the economy. They're not experts in churches, for instance, and the importance of people attending regular church. They're not experts in all that. They're experts in one little sliver, which is basically like how you stop a pandemic from advancing. So you want to give their opinion weight, but the idea that our country handed these people almost unrestricted power to shut things down simply by having one avenue of expertise without being able to take into consideration everything else, that drove me crazy. And I'm so glad. I want to take a moment right now. I don't always get along with Abe Layden, but Abe Layden, George Teal, Laura Thomas, Douglas County, being willing to step into these little health dictators and say, we're not going to allow you to continue to make decisions that force our kids out of school. We are going to take control of the situation. Thank God in heaven they did that, and it was one of the best decisions Douglas County made. But moving forward, we cannot let these little health dictators have the same amount of power they did. They need to be purely in an advisory role, and it needs to be elected officials that can weigh complicated decisions together that make this decisions moving forward. All right. I knew I was going to get fired up about this. It gets into how my kids were treated. It gets into the concern I have about our society and our republic moving forward. So
I love
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, and
thank
Gina,
you all
thanks for the call.
for partaking in that. We'll continue with calls next. We'll get to Joe and Marty. I need to take a breath. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. I like it when Jeff gets emotional.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The New York Times coming out with a big article yesterday on how the youngest pandemic children are now in school and struggling. Teachers this year saw the effects of the pandemic stress and isolation on young students. Some can barely speak, sit still, or even hold a pencil. Congratulations, you little health dictators. This is what you brought to our country. I'm so frustrated. All right, let's go to Joe in Littleton. Joe, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. Good morning.
Hi. First of all, God bless you, Jeff. I love your passion because I have the same for children. And Billy, you're 100% right about mimicking. I taught reading for like 19 years, and that's all I did. And at-risk kiddos. These children, they have to see your mouth. These kids are already a year behind. So they come in, and if, say you're teaching the letter E, the sound of eh, you say, put your tongue behind your teeth. They have to see it visually. So yes, you're totally right. But this is what I wanted to share, and I find it very interesting. A study that was done probably 30 years ago. The same type of studies are done today. Of course, you can always find the other kind of research, but it says that a child that goes into school at preschool and kindergarten and then ends up in the end of first grade, that child will be the same place as the child that never took preschool and never took kindergarten if they have good instruction in first grade. There's a lot of brain development, and those children are then ready. So the kid that never had that preschool and kindergarten will be in the same spot that the kids did take it at the end of first grade.
And what do you think, Joe, we're doing with all of our kids, just handing them iPads? This is one of the issues I had with our local government-run school, where our kids are now in a classical academy, so there's no computers in the school. They learn to write cursive. They learn to write Latin. They basically, if you went back to what school was like in the 50s and 60s, they wear uniforms. They say the Pledge of Allegiance every day. That was the school that worked best for our family. I'm a big proponent of school choice, but one of the things I didn't like was in our government-run schools, I went in to volunteer in the classroom a few times, and I just noticed our kids were just handed iPads all day.
Well, they did another study, and that particular study was from people who are in high-tech, who's the guy that gave all the money?
Talking about Gates or
those kind of guys. Yeah. They all took their kids out of those kind of schools. They wanted them to be in the same kind of school that you're talking about, Jeff, and like a Hillsdale type thing.
Yep.
These kids are learning leaps and bounds because it doesn't get you to be a critical thinker. You just get the information fed, and then you don't even think about it. You don't have interactions and conversation. So yeah, God bless you for putting your kids there. Not everybody can, but I would not teach today in a public school, nor would I put my child in one.
Wow. Joe, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Joe from Littleton. Her line's open, 303-696-1971. We'll get to Marty in just a second. I want to talk to you about my friends, Joyce and Brent Tolliver at Roll 'em Out Shelves. I adore these people. And this morning, I was using my Roll 'em Out Shelves. I use them every single day and love what they have done for our kitchen. So what am I talking about? Well, if you're like us, you probably have a house with the kitchen that the shelves are just standard. They just stay right there. Well, and you end up with stuff in the back and stuff piles up and all that stuff. Hard to get to. Well, with Roll 'em Out Shelves, I just lightly pull out all my shelves. Every single shelf in my kitchen that's at eye level or below, I can now roll out and access everything. It's super easy, especially as you're getting older. You don't have to reach and bend down all the way into the back there. You can access that stuff, get all your essential items, super easy. Roll 'em Out Shelves are sturdy as well. They're built with Baltic birch, and they're built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. This has been one of the best options and perks I've had getting to work in this station and get to meet Joyce and Brent Tolliver. I adore our Roll 'em Out Shelves. We not only have them in our kitchen, we now have them in our laundry room. So you got to check them out. They believe in the mission of this station as well. So you're getting good people. 303 475-9601 or visit rollemoutshelves.com. Be sure to tell them Jeff sent you, rollemoutshelves.com. All right, let's go to Marty. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Marty.
Hey, guys. Good stuff, as always, and a happy early 4th of July. I'm going to spin my bullet right here because COVID stirs and just COVID, never to be forgotten, still to be held to account. I think the listener needs to understand 92% of teachers are Democrats. And I'm not shooting that number out there in the blind, but if you look at political donations made by teachers, 92% of those monies go to the Democrat Party. And so when you step back, you can't just say that these were teachers. No, this was one political party that wanted to take over society in one fell swoop. And they did it again with our kids. Never forget what they were doing in the 60s and in the Soviet movements was to get kids separated from their parents, let them leech onto the state and begin that separation. They did it in China. It was very volatile, and they're trying to do that again in here. So never, ever let the Democrats off the hook for the way they treated and abused children. And that's not even talking about COVID shots. And one way you can get really credible as a Trump supporter, and I'm bold with this, is he did a lot of great things. He blew COVID
tell me,
like nobody's business.
Explain to me why you feel that the restrictions on the kids were the Democrats taking over the kids and trying to take over the state and society. Help me understand how you're getting to that conclusion.
It's another creep. It's another reach. It was another level of intrusion. It was, again, this sort of who's the man behind the mask kind of thing. And so not only were they not being educated, they weren't being loved properly by those in their authority. Teachers turned on their students, their pupils. You saw that happening, right?
How did they get turned? What did they turn? Please explain that to me.
Well, you guys just nailed it in that previous segment, is that the teachers union freaked out over the health of their out-of-shape old teachers versus the well-being of their children. And as recently as 23, Rutgers University was requiring their students be COVID vaccinated, but their faculty could opt out. Now, how crazy is that? Do you think the Republicans were running that? Now, maybe they were, and I'm the dumbest guy, last guy to come to the party. But I know for a fact, if you go look at like Tony Fauci's Wikipedia, it says very proudly, he's a Democrat. And so now we look at repercussions.
Wait, hang on a sec. Hold on. Again, you're casting aspersions based on they made these decisions based on Democrats rather than the idea that the union made the decision to protect their members more than protecting the kids. They didn't balance that. You, however, have decided that it's a Democrat motivation. And I still want you to come back to me and talk to me about how we're taking over the society with the kids when we sent the kids home. That I don't understand the total takeover and indoctrination you are laying at the feet of the Democrats based on the idea that the kids studied from home and spent more time with the parents. That seems like a really, really weird way to take over the country.
Well, you certainly demoralize the kid when he doesn't get to see his friend anymore. Do you know that childhood obesity went up 50% in ages 5 to 11 during the pandemic? And that's
wouldn't that be the parents? Wouldn't that be the parents' fault, not the teachers? The teachers weren't feeding the kids the bad food; they were at home, right? So that's the parents' fault. Again, come back to the idea that this is a Democrat plot, because so far you've told me the kids got to spend more time at home and got fat because they got fed more stuff. I still don't see the Democrat plot that you started with. Help me. Come back to that.
Okay, so did our kids get better or worse coming out of COVID?
Define what you mean. Hang on a sec. Define what you mean by better or worse. What is your?
Okay, were they more complete as human beings? Were they better educated? Were they more?
They were less educated. They were. That's. I was. What I'll do is because we're talking about teachers, we're talking about education. They were less educated and they were less socialized. But again, show me the Democrat plot.
Any depression coming in there? Okay, we had depression rise in our students. How about the kid who didn't get to go to his high school prom because they said that 18-year-old boy is going to die if he's within 6 feet of somebody with COVID-19, Wuhan 19? See,
okay, again, hang on a sec. Wait, Marty, stop. You keep going with all these inflammatory things, but you never yet have made the case that the Democrats did this to take over the society. Stop with all the inflammatory examples. You feel that the example proves your point. Prove your point, please. Please.
Okay, so did we have a separation between the rich and poor during COVID? Was that epic and monumental?
We have a separation between rich and poor all the time. That is the function of this society. We see it in our judicial system. We see that in our educational system. We see that across the board. That's not new, nor is the Democrats taking over the country. Again, show me the Democrats taking over the country. That's where you started. And yet we've gone on for 3 or 4 minutes right now, and you don't have anything.
Well, no, it's overwhelming. The body of
no, it's not. You haven't been able to. You have not been able to take. You have not been able to even have a scant support of your premise. Again, try again. Show me how the restrictions in the educational system were a Democrat plot to take over, please.
Okay, I never saw a Democrat advocating for the opening of schools, saying we don't want a COVID shot. Let's get our kids back. I saw the opposite. I saw COVID-19 expose the heathen, the pagan LGBTQ behavior, and it did create another reach from the state into that child's life. Because look at what's happened since 2020. Billy, did you see the Pride Parade on Saturday? Look at how we've exploded. Our children have been exposed to that in school. COVID let us see that. If any of your listeners haven't seen the Pride Parade,
so what we've gone here, Marty, we've gone from kids in school having to have masks on to now you're talking about things at a Pride Parade. Again, you're not making your case, man. You have yet to show me how the Democrats, based on the educational restrictions, were taking over society. That's where you started. And yet you've wandered all over the place. And you don't have anything else. I appreciate the phone call. Maybe take a second shot at it another day. Right now, dude, you got absolutely zero. I gave you 4 minutes to make your case, and you had bupkis. Try again another day.
Marty, I appreciate the call. 303-696-1971. His line will be open. I don't know if I need to get into Republican or Democrat. I obviously think that there are differences there as it relates to the approach towards COVID. But again, I'm going to go back to this.
Yeah.
These little health dictators.
You got
that existed.
Here's the thing: you got a point there, but I'll let you go there. I think you got a point on this one, my friend. I think you did.
And what drove me nuts was not their political affiliation. What drove me nuts was that they, by nature, don't have to deal with managing complex, like values, complex aspects, right? Like the idea you have to keep a business open and people rely on that, or kids in schools or all that stuff. They are trained in one area, and that is public health. And you go, okay, so they should be advising decision makers, not the decision makers themselves. And in Tri-County Health, when you had them coming in and saying, we're going to keep the schools closed another year, and you have all of these problems now popping up as a result of it, when elected officials can balance competing issues all coming at them, listen to them all, and make a decision. And when they make the wrong decision, they're forced out of office during the next election. That's how it should work. But when you have these little public health dictators that could make decisions and then not have to listen to a constituency, not have to listen to competing issues, and not have to face consequences for bad decisions, that is where I get frustrated and angry.
Here's why I think you are 110% right about the dictators. And you and I come to different conclusions based on how it was handled in the science. But here's why you are 110% right about the unaccountable dictators. One word: vaccines. In our public school system, it is mandatory for you to show up with your kid and have a list of vaccines so you don't get other kids in the school sick. Part of that is because of shared immunity, but also those same people that make the rules allow kids that are immunocompromised to show up at those schools without vaccines. They take into consideration the entirety of the population and the possible strengths and weaknesses of mandatory vaccines for everybody and individuals that can and should be exempt. That's an example of wielding your power well. Yeah. And your example of how they approached it inside the pandemic is 110% correct. Mm-hmm. It was this way or nothing else. Yeah. And you're right.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bill. Thanks so much. And thanks for all the callers. That was a great discussion. I want to talk to you all about our friends at QC Kinetics. I'm heading over there after the show, Billy, to meet with them and see how the whole process works, because the guys in the office here particularly in the sales office, are loving this stuff. They're getting the treatments done to help them with their joints. So what does QC Kinetics do? Well, look, as we all get older, our joints aren't working as well. I'm going to have them take a look at my elbow. And I think it's just out of age. But your joints, your elbows, your knees, your back, they all start to deal with pain as you get a little bit older, but you don't want to run into surgery. Man, that's like last case scenario, because once they start slicing and dicing, one, the recovery takes forever, but then you open yourself up to all sorts of complications. QC Kinetics implements regenerative medicine. What do I mean by that? They harness the power of your own body to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, folks. And the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics can get you started with a free consultation. They have clinics in Aurora and Superior. If your shoulder or back is always hurting, if it hurts to walk or lift something, you need to check this out, and you can get lasting relief. Do it now so you can enjoy the Colorado summertime like you deserve. Next generation joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986. Get a free consultation today, 303-900-8986, or go to painfreecolorado.com. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
really want to do that. That's really what they should be doing. Watch this.
You and I were blessed by God.
No. You are much more attractive than I am. This is awful. It's like I fell out of the ugly tree, hit every branch on the way down.
I joke with my wife. I only had to convince one.
Exactly. Yeah, I am still remarkably surprised.
I was not the type of guy where girls were falling over themselves in middle school or high school. I had friends like that.
Yeah.
And no, that wasn't me. I just had to convince one beautiful woman. That was it.
Yep. So that's a lesson for all of
you
you
out there. And I did it with my
just
charming personality.
Exactly. It only takes one, guys. Only takes one.
Takes one.
Oh, my God. We are in so much trouble.
It's that old saying, there's a lid for every pot.
Exactly.
No. All you need to do is find one.
Yep, exactly.
When we come back, Dr. Tom Copeland's going to join us. He wrote a great opinion piece in Real Clear World about why other countries aren't taking in Palestinian refugees.
That's weird.
Is there something about them? Well, we'll get into that and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. $9 a.m. in the mile. I'm one. Bill's
show, and it's just going to continue into this hour. You're not going to want to miss it. You've tuned in to 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, crazy, pro-vax, anti-vax. Steve Bannon's going to jail because he's a criminal. Steve Bannon's going to jail because he's being prosecuted as a political opponent. Oh, my goodness. What a morning. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we are gearing up for a whole another hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up just after the news, I talk with Dr. Tom Copeland, he's Director of Research at the Centennial Institute, on a very important question. Why aren't Palestinians welcomed by their neighbors?
That's weird.
We all know why Israel. We all know why Israel doesn't like them, but
that's strange. You mean the Arab world that is castigating Israel for the treatment of the Palestinians are treating them differently too?
Isn't welcome them over? You know, come on over. I know you're facing a lot of come on.
So confused.
We got plenty of resources. We'd love to have you, but they're not doing that.
No, well, we'll find out why, but that's weird.
Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 65 and partly cloudy in Denver. Expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Presidency to Donald Trump. Now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it.
Big political implications after Monday's Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. Trump advisor Alina Habba says the ruling means the former president's election interference case has hit a roadblock as the immunity question is litigated. The justices ruled 6-3 on Monday that Trump has some immunity from prosecution and is shielded on some levels from criminal charges for acts he allegedly took in office.
What's going to happen now is that they basically have said, sorry, Jack Smith, you don't get to just impede and intrude on the executive branch. We get to have protections for presidents who are doing things while they are in office so that they don't come out and get targeted and criminally and civilly sued. It's incredibly important. It was a good decision. Obviously, I believe absolute immunity should exist for the executive branch, but they did recognize it.
Trump's lawyers are looking into how they can get the weaponization lawfare New York Communist campaign derailment case tossed now. The lawyers filed a letter with the judge. Well, that's Mersham, of course, looking to set aside the recent verdict, saying evidence was introduced that is now protected. The letter also asks for the July 11th sentencing to be delayed. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis chiming in and looking back at Biden and the debate last week.
You compare him to 2019 to that debate, it's been a really significant decline. And the idea that that decline is going to stop, that somehow you can make it to age 86, given the trajectory, is a joke.
The Biden campaign rolling out the Capitol police officer who, air quotes, defended the Capitol. Harry Dunn has his marching orders from the regime.
I was there when Donald Trump encouraged a mob of supporters to march on the Capitol to try to overturn the results of a free and fair election. I remember it clearly. While they were beating officers with flags, Donald Trump is still the single greatest threat to our democracy. It was true yesterday, and it's true even more, especially after this ruling right now.
One person died, a veteran who was unarmed. Ashley Babbitt shot. She was a Trump supporter, hundreds still in jail, and Democrats are going to ramp this up in the weeks to come. Denver
Blake, look,
yes.
When it comes to January 6th and BLM, I think the American people just want people to be treated the same way. Right. If you damage stuff with BLM or you damage stuff on January 6th, go to jail. You hit a cop in BLM or you hit a cop at January 6th, go to jail. But you're just walking around.
Right.
Don't go to jail. There's no reason to go to jail for that. And if you're going
Fair
to
is
let
fair.
if you're going to let BLM people off, like we just read,
Mhm.
vast majority of them getting dismissed, but you're going to go prosecute someone in January 6th because they walked around?
Right.
Come on.
No, we don't live in a fair country right now. You know what? Charlie Kirk said this yesterday, and it was so true. It was a great point. If we lived in a fair country right now, Saturday Night Live would have had a heyday, a field day over the
debate.
weekend. I guess they didn't.
No
Evidently, they
way.
didn't do it. No, I guess they didn't do hardly anything, which tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah,
That's I think that's interesting. All right, Denver police looking for a white Dodge minivan with Montana plates 29979 8B. The car and its driver allegedly involved in a hit and run. They killed a pedestrian on June 25th on Colfax. I-76 was shut down this morning after a car crash involving a vehicle and a bicyclist. One person died. It has reopened. Lakewood authorities say a woman who was 50 to 70 years old entered the First Bank on South Wadsworth, said that she had a weapon and demanded money before she fled. She's described as white and at least 5'3" with a thin build.
Blake, I think we got a wanted poster here.
There we go.
Oh, that's great. That is fantastic. Okay.
Intimidating. Who put that together?
Adam did. Adam put that
Nice
together,
job, Adam.
and it is right
Nice
out
job,
of
Adam.
Billy the Kid, or the little old lady that
Yes.
with a blue mask
Oh
on.
man, that is
Fantastic.
great.
Well done,
I
Adam.
don't want. Well, nice job, Adam.
Now-
I don't want to run into her anytime.
Got a question, guys. Do you think that she's smuggling an apple or an orange there where her chin is? I mean, what's up with that? I mean, why is that
what's
big,
going
long
on?
chin? I mean, it's almost like
Yeah.
it's comical. What's going on there?
No, it is.
Or wait. Here's a theory, because we always do weird theories here on the show. Could this just be some small dude pulling a Mrs. Doubtfire?
I was wondering that.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same
Could we
thing.
just Mrs. Doubtfire
How do we
this?
know it's a woman?
Yeah.
Really? Seriously.
I know. How do we possibly know?
How do we know? Man, that is right. I'm not gonna
I don't
Yeah.
think Social Security's paying as much as it used to. Apparently, little old ladies are having to rob banks.
Oh man, this is totally going to change my retirement plans. I'm sorry, I got to start working on my bank robbery skills.
I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep tonight after looking at that photo, man. That is scary. Okay, hey, you know what? Let's talk about Ronaldo, Billy. What is this about him crying in the Euros?
Yeah,
What
Euros.
happened?
Euros yesterday. Ronaldo cries on the field. Yeah,
A
one of the greatest
soccer
of all
player?
times. Yeah, crying on the field and full blown tears.
What happened?
Okay, here's the deal. Portugal is facing off against Slovenia. Slovenia, tiny team. The gulf in talent is monumental. It is beyond anything that we could probably really understand here in America.
right?
Yeah, it is ridiculous. There is only one saving grace. The Slovenian team has a couple of decent players, but they have a goalkeeper who is unreal. Dude has been at the top of his game for over a decade. Jan Oblak, amazing goalkeeper.
Really?
Yeah, he is keeping Slovenia in the game based on how Portugal's attacking. But again, we talk about it all the time. In soccer, it's one of the few sports, if not the only sport on the planet, in which it demands excellence of the team that has more talent. Very few other sports demand excellence on this level. Slovenia organizes themselves well, defends like their lives depended on it. They go 0, and this is the knockout stage. They go 0-0 at the end of time. They go into an extra 30 minutes, 2 15-minute halves. In the first half, penalty kick is awarded for Portugal. Who takes the penalty? It's Ronaldo. It's the greatest of all time. There's nobody else on that team you possibly could hand that ball to in that moment. He steps up, hits that ball strongly towards that right post. Y'all block at full stretch, blocks it and parries it outside the bar. And Ronaldo is crushed. A couple of minutes later, they go to the halftime in the changeover to go from one half to the other in the extra time. And Ronaldo breaks down. He is in full tears inside the huddle because he feels like he has just let not just his team, but the entire nation down.
God,
Now,
what a loser.
in the second extra time, Slovenia's only striker that has any hope of doing anything, Pepe, makes a horrible decision defensively, and their striker is through. Diego Costa, who is the goalkeeper, first major tournament the Portuguese keeper has ever played, stands up strong, blocks the breakaway.
Wow.
One of 2 breakaways by this particular Slovenian striker that he stops. We're at the end of extra time. You know what that means? The worst way to decide a soccer match, penalty kicks. However,
it came down to penalty
Portugal has to face off against Slovenia, and their best player, Jan Oblak, is the dude standing in the goal. If there's any player that has the ability to knock Portugal out of the tournament, it's Jan Oblak.
Jan Oblak.
Yeah. And now they step up. And who takes the first penalty kick for Portugal? Ronaldo. Ronaldo, who just 20 minutes ago was blocked by the very same goalkeeper on the very same field. Ronaldo steps up, buries the shot, goes the other direction. All Blacks at a stretch, doesn't get there in time. Now, here's where it gets fun. The Slovenians step up. Diego Costa blocks the first penalty. Portugal steps up again. Bruno Fernandes buries the goal. 2. Now, Slovenia steps up again. They shoot to the other side. Costa, full stretch, blocks it. He's now got 2 blocks in a penalty kick shootout back to back in a major tournament, and he's never started in a major tournament before.
Wow.
Now, you have Bernardo Silva, older player, slower player, steps up for Portugal. Yep. Buries the 3rd penalty kick. You get 5 in the first round. Slovenia steps up. Jan Oblak, Diego Costa is sitting there in the goal. If he can stop this, game's over. Slovenia steps up, takes the shot. Costa blocks it. He blocks 3 penalty kicks in a row in a penalty kick shootout to send Portugal through. He saved Ronaldo's bacon. He turned around and and the thing is that inside of the team, it was about Diego Costa's joy and how he lifted the team above rather than Ronaldo's falling apart. And it's hard because
pretty cool.
It's amazing. Ronaldo took more shots than anybody else in that entire match. He's taken more shots without scoring a goal than anybody else in the tournament. It is apparently obvious to everybody watching. This is his last hurrah. He is on fumes. 40 at this point. 30, 39, 40. Yeah. Wow. So he's on fumes. He's on fumes. He doesn't have it, but he still can put the ball in the back of the net. But when he failed, he had a redemption, but it is Costa who steps up and blocks 3 penalty kicks in a row to send them through. That's unreal. It was something special.
How tall is the other goaltender?
I think he's around 6'4", 6'5". I mean, big dudes. Yeah, you can always tell the goaltender because they're like head and shoulders above everybody else.
Definitely.
Yeah, but All Black's been an amazing guy. Yeah, it's unreal. It was unreal yesterday.
I'm gonna go check that out. I'll go check it out.
It's incredible.
You sell it well, Billy.
I appreciate it.
Commissioner.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for giving me that space to talk about it. It was amazing yesterday.
Oh, that's cool. I'll go check it out. The Rockies win 8-7, and it's 59 in Castle Pine, 60 in Lafayette, and 65 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Temperatures reaching the lower 80s today, partly cloudy. A few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms, upper 50s and low 60s tonight. Sunny, warm, upper 80s to near 90 Wednesday. An isolated late-day thunderstorm, 50s as we clear out Wednesday night. Independence Day Thursday, cooler, only 75 to 80. 50s Thursday night, low to mid-80s Friday with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A question that I've always wondered about this kind of Israeli-Palestinian Hamas conflict that's taking place. Aren't there other countries nearby that would want to help the Palestinians?
It's a good
and
point.
not help them by shooting rockets,
shooting at the other people. It's weird that we hear about this humanitarian crisis that is inside of Gaza. But the strange thing is we don't hear about the number of refugees that are being taken in, nor do we hear about, some of the aid that's been siphoned off and gone into other people's bank accounts. That's strange.
In a opinion piece in Real Clear World, Dr. Tom Copeland, director of research at the Centennial Institute, writes about why Palestinians are not welcome by their neighbors. He joins the Jeff and Bill show. Dr. Copeland, thanks so much for being on the program.
Good morning.
Well, I'm glad to be here. And Billy, I have to say, as a huge soccer addict, I agree that was a masterful description of the Portugal game. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you so much. And now he's my favorite, Jeff. You've been replaced. I tease. Thank you.
No, and I just sit here and think of this weather. I can't follow soccer.
No.
I have no idea what you guys were talking about the whole time. So I'm glad you and Billy and Blake can get there.
Thank you.
Dr. Copeland, want to ask you about the opinion piece. Why aren't Palestinians welcomed by their neighbors?
Well, there's this huge historical trajectory for the Palestinians themselves, right? They were basically the peasants, Bedouins, rival tribes, and so on throughout history, all the way back to the Philistines, right? Philistine, Palestine, all the way back in the Old Testament, and all the way up through like the Ottoman Empire for 400 years and so on. They really were second-class citizens, again, very poor. And then what happened was that once the state of Israel was established, then the Palestinians got caught up in a whole bunch of things, fundamentally coming out of being influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood, which started in Egypt. And so the Palestinians, basically, they've got Hamas. They helped found Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, all these terrorist groups. And so the neighboring countries are just not super happy with taking in the Palestinian people.
And why not? What's wrong with them?
Well, so there are a couple of things. I mean, that if you think specifically the countries that are closest to them, Egypt and Jordan, Syria and Lebanon, those are the countries that border Israel and Palestine. And if you look at, for example, where are the Palestinians? They're not just in the West Bank or just in Gaza. There are roughly 60 Palestinian refugee camps all across the Middle East. Jordan alone has 10 of those camps with 2 million Palestinians living there. And the thing is that, Jordan accepted a lot of Palestinians after the 67 war and people fleeing even from 1948 and so on. But by 1970, the King of Jordan had to expel the PLO because they were attempting to take over the country. They tried an attempted coup with the support of the Syrian army. And so he forced them out in what became known as Black September, which was the name of the terrorist group that carried out the 1972 Munich terrorist attacks. So Jordan has no particular love for the Palestinians, and Egypt probably dislikes them even more. The Muslim Brotherhood was founded there in 1928 by this guy Hassan al-Banna, who, by the way, had studied at UNC Greeley.
No,
and
he's there.
Yes. Yes.
Oh man, I'm gonna make fun of my UNC friends.
Yeah, when he came to the U.S., he was so appalled at the Western world and how free we were with our politics and culture and so on. That was part of what inspired him to found the Muslim Brotherhood. The basic idea of the Muslim Brotherhood is just Muslims need to return to the Quran itself, Islamic law, education, and kind of focus inwards and so on. But that eventually bloomed into Egyptian Islamic Jihad, and ultimately they assassinated President Anwar Sadat in 1981. So Egypt has no particular love of the Palestinians historically either.
Now, Dr. Tom Copeland, I just want to interrupt just for a second, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute. I want to talk about the lack of love inside of the Arab world as you're outlining for the Palestinians. Can you help the listener understand and comprehend how the Arab world gets mad at Israel for their treatment of the Palestinians when in many ways their own treatment of Palestinians is just as bad, if not worse?
Well, I think it's been a cynical policy about the Palestinians for a long time. I mean, remember, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria are all secular governments. And the more these ideas of Muslim Brotherhood and the importance of having Muslim leaders, this is why Osama bin Laden was kicked out of Saudi Arabia, was trying to get rid of the secular kingdom. They're really not. They're not crazy about these groups of people who really want to get rid of those secular governments. And so the support that they've gotten over the years, I mean, it's easy for Qatar, for example, funds the Palestinians a lot. They're totally cynical. They know that basically fomenting Palestinian hatred towards Israel keeps things bubbling and keeps Israel in check. Israel is a regional power. It has nuclear weapons. They don't seem likely to actually invade the other countries, but for the Saudis, Qatar, Yemen, and so on, Iran, it's been helpful for them, they think, to sort of keep things bubbling along without actually helping the Palestinians.
So the idea being that, it's inelegant, but the idea of the friend or the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but more importantly, if we can keep the Palestinian conflict churning, if we can do just enough to appear that we are helping, then it prevents the self-examination inside the Muslim world of larger schisms that could happen based on religion, politics, and other things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why, the Saudis before 9/11 were willing to sort of let Osama bin Laden go. And they didn't have tight control over the Islamists there who eventually came and attacked us on 9/11. It's easier to provide some kind of an outlet valve if there's internal pressure. You just turn people's direction to some kind of enemy out there. I mean, that's the whole thing with Iran. Their government is in terrible straits. They're pushing nuclear weapons, but their people hate them. And I think they would uprise and remove them easily. But the Iranian leadership focuses on Israel, focuses on the great Satan of America, and so on, as a way to let off steam for people.
Talking with Tom Copeland. He's the director of research at the Centennial Institute. Dr. Copeland, at this point, I don't think there's a two-state solution. Do you? I just think that Israel takes over Palestine, and Palestinians are welcome to live under Israeli control.
Yeah, that's a key sticking point with the negotiations even now. It's not clear that Israel, except for their own left wing, the Dove Party, nobody inside Israel is really pushing for a two-state solution because they know what's likely to happen. It's still only 30 miles from the West Bank to the shore of the Mediterranean. Tanks could roll across that in a matter of a couple of hours. And so Israel will still face threats, in the West Bank and Gaza, even if they really control the whole territory. But I don't think they want Gaza back at this point. When they turned the Gaza over in 2005, the Gaza Strip was actually, an agricultural phenomenon. They were using all kinds of drip agriculture, and it was an incredible area. When the Palestinians took over, they ripped all that stuff up. They tore up what had been, productive agricultural systems there. There's a lot of maintenance. The Israelis know that they might be willing to provide security to keep Hamas down, but they're not going to want to take on the responsibility of both rebuilding the destruction and then maintaining the Palestinian people until they can get on their feet.
Talking with Dr. Tom Copeland, director of research at the Centennial Institute. You're an expert in international affairs. You've tracked a lot of this stuff over the years. You made a good case as to why none of the neighboring countries are going to take in Palestine. You make a good case as to what's going to happen in this war. I guess my question is Israel stuck dealing with these crazy terrorists just kind of playing whack-a-mole as they pop up? And the worst thing they can do is allow them to continue to coalesce into a political entity like Hamas. I mean, do they just have to be fully destroyed? And as they kind of terrorists pop up, you knock them down.
Yeah, the Israelis themselves refer to it as mowing the grass. it's going to be, even if they succeed in Rafah in taking out the remaining Palestinian, Hamas leadership is there. The fact is that, and it's not only Hamas that has in its charter the total destruction of the Israeli people, but it really, if you follow the more conservative versions of Islam, there is no solution except forcing the Israelis out of the Holy Land. I may have mentioned this before, but I was there in 2010 with, of course, a group of professors. We got to visit a prison in northern Israel, and we had a chance to talk with a number of convicted terrorists who were there. Our interpreter was an Islamic Jihad guy. We talked to a Hamas commander and asked him, these two terms, and just give me a second here. Sorry, it's going to take a minute to explain, but salam means peace, right? Hudna means truce. So when the Palestinians are negotiating over, a ceasefire, they're thinking hudna. Well, Muhammad said, well, salam is like perfect peace. Hudna is a truce that you can enjoy for some period of time while you rearm against your enemies, and then you can break at any time. So we asked this guy, okay, if the Israelis would pull out of the West Bank and Gaza, which one would you have? He said, hudna, just a truce. We said, what if the Israelis were, if the Jews were completely gone from the whole, region of Palestine? I said, hudna, just a truce. And then we said, well, okay, what if all the Jews on earth were exterminated? And then he said, salam. I mean, we could clearly hear him saying these words, salam. And I think the thing is it's not only Hamas, and there are still pockets, whether it's in ISIS or Hezbollah or other groups that,
or all of Iran.
Eternal, and I think it's just one of those eternal divisions. It has biblical origins, and I don't know that the problem will be, quote, solved in any of our lifetimes.
That's interesting. Now, do you think, Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute, that the Arab world is interested in solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or is it more useful to use it in order to gain political pressure and to do nefarious things like Iran? Iran is having a lot of fun funneling money towards Hamas, Hezbollah, and a whole bunch of other organizations. Is that really the goal inside the Muslim world, in your opinion? Or are they actually looking for some sort of a solution that wouldn't involve killing all the Jews, which is always awkward?
Yeah, and I think distinguishing between Iran and most of the rest of the Arab countries, and of course they're Persian, not Arab, but several other countries joined the Abraham Accords. Right, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan are all on board with it. So I think the other countries are realizing that, frankly, their biggest problem is not Israel, it's Iran. And as we continue to allow Iran to build its nuclear weapons program with no penalty whatsoever, these other countries get nervous. And I think they see Israel as a better ally, and they've got a nuclear deterrent against Iran. So I think most of these other Arab countries, I think Saudi Arabia is the big cheese here. And if they sign the agreement, which hopefully they will once this current conflict in Gaza dies down, then I think many of the other Arab countries will go along with it. But their biggest fear is Iran. And Iran has been pushing terrorism against these other secular governments too. It's support for Hezbollah and Hamas and Islamic Jihad and so on. So it's already known as a bad actor to the rest of the Middle East, and I think that's their fear. So they're much more willing to open up, diplomatic relations with Israel. Trade would be good. These Arab countries that depend on oil are realizing it's going to run out, maybe 30 or 40 years from now. But because it's going to run out, they've got to diversify their economies. And in Israel, they've got, a super high tech economy that they can plug into. So they've got multiple motives for changing their tune about the Palestinians and wanting to, and now may be that they want to quiet the Palestinian issue as opposed to aggravate it.
Yeah, I kind of feel that inside of the Middle East, that Iran is that uncomfortable drunk uncle that everybody tries to ignore around Thanksgiving time, that we know he's around, but we know that when he gets in public and he starts saying stuff, something's going to go sideways, and that we're always embarrassed about him. And I agree with you that Saudi Arabia is the major player, and I think Egypt is also one of the ones that needs to get involved stronger, but I'm not sure they have the political or will for it. Now, I want to pivot, Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute, to talking about the protests that we are seeing here in America. I want to get your reaction and your insight as to why you feel so many protesters seem to fundamentally misunderstand Hamas, Palestine, and what's going on in that region. And what I mean by this is, if you come up and you talk to the protesters and you ask them about Hamas, which again, it wasn't the Palestinians that launched the attack, it was Hamas, that Hamas's fundamental principle is that all Jews must die. They seem shocked that that is the group of people they are supporting when they're out there blocking campuses, breaking into buildings, or blocking parades. That those are the people that they are giving support to. Individuals that would love to be able to complete the work of another homicidal maniac. Why do you think we have this fundamental misunderstanding?
Well, I think it's another part of the breakdown of our educational system. If you think about your average college sophomore coming up through most of the schools in our country, you know, they had Colorado history in fourth grade. They had, you know, they've had U.S. history and maybe Western civilization, maybe European history, but very few have had any history of the Middle East. And it is so complicated. You know, Game of Thrones is ridiculously simple compared to Middle East politics. So they don't have any real history with it. They have no knowledge of geography. They don't know what river and what sea they're even talking about, or what hemisphere, you know, Gaza is in. But one thing that they have gotten, probably starting in high school and then definitively when they're in most of our universities, all they hear is the oppressor-oppressed language. And the thing is, they don't even get enough history to know the Holocaust, to know that the Jews have been the most oppressed people in world history. They don't even know that. So when someone tells them, oh, the Israelis came in, they conquered, you know, they're the oppressors and the Palestinians are the oppressed, they completely ignore the Holocaust, the establishment of the State of Israel, the other Arab countries attacking Israel immediately to try to take it off the face of the earth, the 67 and 73 wars. They have no context, no history, and all they have is this basic narrative. And then they're prompted both in some cases by their professors, in some cases by activists and so on. They do have a very keen sense of social justice, and I think that's true of this entire Gen Z basically, which is remarkable. But uninformed pursuit of justice leads to this kind of nonsense, organizing and protesting and sitting in and assaulting people and protesting from absolute ignorance.
Now, Dr. Copeland, I want to play this. This is something that Jeff had found a number of weeks ago, and we've titled it Gaza Graduation. It is someone wandering around talking to some of the protesters and offering them some money if and only if they can get some of these questions correct. We'll talk about this reaction here in a sec.
Welcome to Gaza Graduation. Let's see how much students actually know what they stand for. If you get them right, you win $100. First question, have you guys chanted from the river to the sea?
Yes.
Okay, which river, which sea?
The Sea of...
So you don't know. No. And the answer was the Mediterranean and the Jordan. What does Hamas say their number one goal is according to their charter?
They just want to free Palestine.
To murder all Jews around the world. How many years did Israel occupy Gaza?
Late 1800s, the entire time.
Since 48.
It was actually under Egyptian control for the first 20 or so years, and then Israel actually left Gaza in 2006.
I'm shocked.
Wait, they left?
What is the definition of Zionism?
Doesn't that mean you hate Palestinians, right?
Jewish people who think that Judaism is the highest race.
Zionism actually just means that you think Jews are entitled to having their own homeland to protect themselves from another Holocaust. You don't even have to be Jewish. That makes you a Zionist.
Okay.
What does Intifada revolution mean?
I don't know what that means.
But you've chanted it?
Yeah.
It's like a global call to murder Jews.
Wow.
Did you know you said that?
No.
Would you say it again?
Probably not.
How much have our foreign adversaries donated to American universities in the last decade?
No idea.
I couldn't give you a number on that.
The answer was over $6 billion. How many Gazan refugees have the Arab neighboring countries let in the last few months?
35,000.
The answer was 0.
Look, you asked an education major about.
Students don't seem to know what they stand for. So wouldn't it be great if these expensive colleges actually taught them something?
Oh, why would he do that? That would be silly.
Dr. Copeland, I want to ask you this question real quick. Final question. We all laugh at the left doing, obviously they're idiots. Those college students are. They don't know what their minds are made of mush. They've just consumed whatever the left sends to them. I'm also concerned, though, there's an element in the hard right. I'm thinking Nick Fuentes and others that really don't like America supporting Israel. They've taken the idea of America first to America only, and that the Jews have too much control in this country. And I know we didn't discuss talking about this, but do you have any thoughts on elements of the hard right being anti-Semitic?
Well, I think the left's general attribution of anyone to the right of President Biden is a Nazi. You don't want to overplay the neo-Nazi thing. There's an element of many countries, not just here. I think what has happened with the far right in part is that pretty open to conspiracy theories. Bill, you mentioned conspiracy theories on the show. And it's easy to find someone to blame for whatever's going on. And historically, whether this is in the time of the Renaissance or Reformation, even hundreds of years ago, when people were frustrated at whether it was the banking system or why were Jews so wealthy, they sort of found this easy target. And my sense is that on the far right, it's both a matter of I think some of the racism that goes on with total rejection of anybody of a different skin color coming to America, and I think that's completely wrong. And I think the same thing is true of that reaction against Jews. These notions of it's white national purity or simply just finding a scapegoat. Right? We're going to blame somebody else for our problems other than ourselves or our government and so on. So. I've not studied it closely in the far right, but that's my impression of part of what's happening there.
But Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute, he's got a new opinion piece in Real Clear World titled Why Palestinians Are Not Welcomed by Their Neighbors. It explores all the complication of Palestinian relationships with Egypt, Jordan, and others. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the Jeff and Bill Show. Appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure.
All right, I want to talk to you about my friends at Advanced Hair Restoration. You know that the Jeff and Bill Show was rated the top talk radio show by Westward Magazine. Well, our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration were named the top hair restoration company by Westward as well. Everyone always asks, what makes Advanced Hair Restoration different? Allow me to share along with you some details and get this. Their once-a-year summer savings event. First off, Advanced Hair stands by their results, and their before and afters are second to none. With Advanced Hair, your own natural hair is guaranteed to grow. Secondly, Advanced Hair combines top-rated physicians with modern technology, creating a concierge quality experience that's hard to find elsewhere. And lastly, Advanced Hair's Advance, FUE, begins regrowing your own natural hair the very next day. It's quick, it's simple, and it's easy. Now, if you have a flexible schedule this summer and you've been waiting for that special savings opportunity, it's here. Advanced Hair Summer Savings Event will get you the most hair for your dollar. It's their best offer ever. For details and to schedule a free consultation, give them a call at 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Before and afters at advancedhair.com. That's 720-459-HAIR. or advancedhair.com. We'll continue next with You Choose the News. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Billy, let's do You Choose the News.
Yes, despite our better judgment, we are yet again going to put our careers on the line with everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. They have just entered a sales meeting across the hall, so we have a small window of opportunity to do the fun and frivolity we skipped over earlier today. If you're not familiar with the game, we take mere moments scouring the interwebs to find dumb stories about us humans, giving them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Why? Well, it's a lot of fun and kind of silly, and hopefully you've been paying attention. That's kind of what we do here. Also, this is not sponsored by Roll 'em Out Shelves. They are a wonderful mother-son team that will come to your home to solve your clutter problems. Kitchen, bath, garage. They solved clutter in my mom's house and in the Hunt household. The one thing they won't do is be associated with You Choose the News. But check them out for your free estimate. Roll'emOutShelves.com. All righty, Mr. Hunt. Here are your choices this morning. Headline number 1, I bet you can't. Headline number 2, Marvin was right. Headline number 3, CYA is illegal. And headline number 4, maybe stay inside. Your choice, sir.
Well, I bet you can't. Let's start there.
Yeah, I bet you can't. A senior conservative candidate in Britain is betting he can't win the next election. Yes, Sir Philip Davies has put down an 8,000-pound bet that he is going to get loser. He is going to be a loser in the very next election. Yes, he has that much confidence. Yes, he is voting against himself to win in the next election. Yeah, he's been in the whatever the parliament is there for just about 10 years, and he says there's no way I'm going to win. He said several interviews about this in this next election, but he did put his money where his mouth is. He's betting against himself.
That's like throwing a game, though.
I know, isn't it? But I guess in politics it's legal. I know.
Yeah, because how more snaky can you get in politics,
exactly.
Right?
Alrighty, sir. Second choice. Marvin was right. CYA is illegal, or maybe stay inside.
Marvin was right.
Yeah, Marvin was right. We go to Seoul, South Korea. Recently, people were asking why. Why did the official robot commit suicide? Now, they were using robots in City Hall. They've got a number of them inside of South Korea. This one meandered around City Hall, was a basic security robot, but also functioned as an information kiosk. It was so clever, it could even call the elevator and transition to different floors. However, recently, looks like the stress of the job got to the robot.
Just drove off.
It circled. It went in a circle for a little while and then just drove right off the stairs. So yeah, even for civil service employees that are robots, it is too much.
Yeah,
to handle.
I was gonna say with AI, it's learning that sometimes work just gets a little hard.
Yes, his job sucks. Alrighty, final choice this morning, sir. CYA is illegal, or maybe stay inside.
Maybe stay inside.
Yeah, maybe you should stay inside. At least that's what Edward Kang, 20-year-old gamer, probably should have done. Oftentimes we tell gamers go out and touch grass, but in this case, it was a bad idea because Edward Kang flew more than 1,000 miles to confront a gaming rival and then tried to kill him. Yes, Edward brought along with a hammer with him, broke into his rival's home in the middle of the darkness of night, and then went all Super Mario Brothers on him, trying to take away his health points. Yes, bonk, 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 with the hammer. Now, fortunately, the rival only needed minor stitches to deal with it, but now Edward is facing a long time in prison. Yeah, maybe next time, don't touch the grass. Just saying.
Oh, man, you just got to let it go
I
sometimes.
know, you gotta
Flying
go.
all that way to get in a fight
over an imaginary world that are a bunch of electronic people. That's great. That's why we don't have nice things. That's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, sir.
Well, I want to tell you as we wrap the show today about my friend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. I've known Gay for the last few months here. She's been in studio. Here's 3 reasons why I adore her. Number 1, she's great to work with. If you're selling your home, you're going into one of the most stressful seasons of your life. You want to work with somebody that has just this wonderful, bright, caring, kind disposition. Number 2, she gives back to the community. She supports the values of 710K in U.S. and helps care for orphans in the state of Colorado because she was an orphan herself, wants them to find their forever home. Most importantly, she is the pros. Look, we all got family members and friends that are real estate agents. They want our business, but at the end of the day, this is about getting the most for your family. And she gets her clients an average of $30,000 more in the sale of their home. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. They sell the home 1.5 times faster. They have 14,700 pre-approved buyers ready to make a purchase, and they can make an average of $30,000 more on the sale of your home. You need to check out Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team today. Give them a call. 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Oh, really? What kind of hunting? Because I mean, you know, doves, quail, ducks.
Cougar hunting.
Uh-oh, that's gonna hurt Lodo. Lodo and Low are gonna be in a lot of trouble. Especially, and oh my gosh, you gotta avoid shenanigans right around happy hour. Don't do that. That's horrible. I'm a horrible person.
Actual mountain lions, which are allowed to be hunted now in the state of Colorado. There may be a ban coming because, you know, that worked so well when voters decided on wolves, too.
Oh, yeah, that's great. The one thing we've known is that voters are absolutely wonderfully well-informed and very intelligent.
Brilliant when it comes to ballot box biology.
Oh, absolutely. We as voters have never made a bad choice. President. I'm sorry. There's something in my throat there.
Shenanigans.
Yeah.
If you've been there, you know what Billy's talking about.
You know.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. All right, coming up next, you got Cal Thomas, followed by Charlie Kirk. If you missed any of the show, go to 710knus.com to listen to the podcast. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.